Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers! Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we watch on a month-to-month basis. It's time to crack open our movie memoirs! Okay, so Dragon, the box office is fucking terrible right now. That's what I want to lead with, man. My God, it's really bad. It's really bad. But other than that, it feels like this month, I don't know about you, Dragon, but for some reason, this month has felt really long to me as far as movies go. Because, like, one of the movies that's really high for me that I know wasn't on your radar at all, that we'll talk about, starring a certain Mr. Banks, is, I really had to double check. I was like, oh my God, I saw that in November? Wow. So, I don't know. It's just a weird time right now. The box office is all over the place. Of course, Avatar 2 right on the horizon, but that's pretty much the only big movie in December. But anyways, Dragon, we got a lot to talk about. Let's break down the news, and I should also change the color. What color do you want, Dragon?
Okay, well, something for Thanksgiving, either brown or orange or something.
I'll do a nice Thanksgiving, like, brownish orange. All right. So, Dragon, unfortunately, of course, we had honestly, kind of a Mount Rushmore of passings this month. Jesus, it was brutal. First and foremost, we have to talk the late, great, the great Conroy. Kevin Conroy, man. This was just Dragon, I literally, like, this hit so hard where it's like, it hit me, but then it also hit me as far as, like, just, kind of like mourning for you and also all the other fans that, my only real attachment to Batman the Animated Series is watching it through the podcast. But, of course, generations of fans, it was big instrumental. So, I can't get on my soapbox about Dragon. I'm sure it was just, I'm sure you're still trying to recover from it, man.
Yeah, I kind of hated November.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Dragon, you and I both, buddy. It was rough for the both of us. I'm on the same page.
Yeah, it was shocking and an unimaginable loss of an icon. The definitive Batman without question, and it's honestly as if Batman himself died. That's really what it feels like. I'm gutted by it, and it's obviously we kind of spoke to it at length, but yes, I'm still flummoxed by it, and it's very sad. I don't think the wound is healed yet. No,
I don't blame you.
So is this kind of orangish and brownish? You think?
I tried to go brownish. I don't know. You want it a little browner?
I mean, if we can say a little browner, a little coffee brown, perhaps.
Coffee brown. How about
there?
That?
We go. Okay. So that'll work. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's go with the death I initially thought was going to be the worst death of this month.
Oh God!
Just to show you how high my expectations were.
Yeah, this one might, like, outside of Conroy, I would say this one was probably the most shocking, just because Aaron Carter. Honestly, not even really a movie guy, Dragon, but for our generation, we all know Aaron Carter. We all freaking remember Aaron Carter.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Carter. For me, nostalgically, was on my radar because of Jimmy Neutron.
Of course,
that was the big publicized thing. Like, hey, we got a brand new spanking Aaron Carter songs to put on.
Oh my God, that freaking commercial for the movie soundtrack with the Aaron Carter. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He was just all over the early 2000s movie soundtracks, Dragon. He was very much kind of in that space.
Yeah, so I was just really, I was just sidelined by, oh God, this totem of my nostalgic past is just gone, so completely out of the blue. Like, Aaron Carter was a young man, and
just barely older than us. Yeah,
it's just very, very unexpected.
The one thing that hit me especially hard about it was I saw some footage of Nick Carter performing, or I think it was the whole Backstreet Boys. They had a tribute concert to him, and man, you could just see Nick Carter just totally devastated by it. And that's kind of much how with Conroy, it's like I almost kind of like felt more bad for you than the loss itself, just given the personal attachment to you. But with this, it's like I almost kind of feel like, I kind of have that second hand, like, because Nick Carter, again, Backstreet Boys, love them or hate them, they were a soundtrack of our youth. So I don't know, it's just kind of a crazy cross-generational thing.
And plus, we did that. We had the Lizzie McGuire thing we talked about on.
Of course,
I forget if it was this year or last year we talked about.
Oh my God, fuck! Aaron Carter was in that. Oh, you're right.
Was that this year or last year we talked about that?
I want to say it was this year.
I think so too, because I think we went for an off the wall one for.
I think so. I think that was my off. Oh God. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. I forget if they actually got that. Was he actually in that? Because I know they talked him up, and I think he was.
Yeah, he was. He definitely was.
Yeah, it just was not like he wasn't in prom. He's only they built to him for that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because I specifically remember like the really bad acting.
Right. So yeah, it's just very, very unfortunate.
Right, and then a man who died in the shadow of Conroy Dragon, Jesus Christ, Gallagher.
To be fair, the Batman cast a huge shadow.
Of course. But what's really weird about the Gallagher thing is it happened like right around the same time as Weird dropped. And Dragon, I'll tell you, Weird just kind of set me on a whole sort of, autism-fueled hyperfixation journey through like Weird Al and Tiny Tim and all that throughout November. If I'm being honest, a good chunk of my time was just spent going through the Weird Al backlog. But of course, Gallagher, makes an appearance in that movie. And Dragon, I don't know, like, what, because I got to tell you, Dragon, Gallagher was like one of the rare, he might have been the first stand-up comedian that my parents showed me. And I had no idea what to make of him because I just kind of like knew, like they hyped up the watermelon bit, but of course that's the finale. And I don't know, weird act, but what, you have any sort of nostalgic attachment to him?
Well, yeah, of course, just for the for the kids out there, man. Who the heck is Gallagher? Gallagher was the comedian who famously you'd want to wear like a poncho or like kind of like a rain catcher or something, and like a piece of plastic in front of, because he would smash a watermelon on stage with a giant mallet. That was a shtick. That was like, and here comes the Gallagher. So that's why Iron Man
was like, I'm pretty sure in his routine, that was pretty much like his routine built up to that.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone was very eager for it. That's why in pop culture, Gallagher was referenced a couple times. Of course, anytime you had like the watermelon being smashed, just in kind of like a comic beat or like a reference to a comedian, you would have that, or you'd have like Iron Man and Iron Man 2, like shooting the watermelon. It says, "Here comes the Gallagher."
Right.
And for me, the biggest thing I was going to this is probably my introduction to like this guy had a name. I just thought, oh, it's the watermelon guy. Now, mind you, this is like a parody of name, because I'm going to assume Gallagher either they didn't want to get sued by Gallagher, or they just wanted to change it for comedic purposes. I'm not sure. On Freakazoid, they had a parody of Gallagher, which was hysterical to me, where where Professor Jones, played by the wonderful Jonathan Harris, he essentially, if I recall, it was the episode where I think it's Cosgrove in Love, and Freakazoid wants Cosgrove to go with him too. But you love Gulliver, which again, Gulliver essentially was the parody of Gallagher, in which he was, he would say gibberish on the stage, and then he would like, and then he would hit the watermelon, and the gag was you saw the audience in like the splash zone, and and Freakazoid had to go with him, and Freakazoid left to use the little boys' room. And they took the little tarp with them, so everyone put the thing up. And the idea is that the hysterical thing was that it terrified Jonathan Harris. Is Freakazoid, don't go. I'll get frightened. He's so frightened of the watermelon. Anyway, but so point being, Gallagher's always kind of indelibly kind of put on there. Usually Gulliver, and also does every time our friend comes in the fray. The small part of my mind in the background always says, but we love Gulliver.
Oh my God.
So because of that,
it's funny, Dragon. I'm just going to mention this right now because it's been in the back of my mind ever since I watched the movie. But Willow, Dragon, it is fucking impossible I can't emphasize this enough. It is impossible for me to watch Willow and not think of, but I was the Willow.
Yep.
That will never leave my
There's
mind.
only one thing that would ever make that better. If you had Warwick Davis say, but I was the Willow.
I was just thinking this, Dragon. You know what we need to do is we need to have Warwick Davis write a tell-all book about the making of Willow, and it has to be called "I Was the Willow."
Well, it kind of has a tell-all book, but you're right.
Right.
Specified
No,
to
but
Willow.
I'm saying this is just a deep dive specifically into Willow.
Right.
All right.
Anyway.
Okay, so we have Achy Breaky World in the comments here. Yeah, okay. Sure.
All right. Let's see. Then, of course, this one's not really in our circle, but a lot of people we know really love this guy. So, Jason David Frank.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dragon, specifically how I know this guy is actually through History of Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And so, of course, through that, I kind of because Linkara did do a pretty good job of highlighting just how popular this guy was and also some of his mental health struggles throughout the year. So honestly, Dragon, I think this kind of hit a little closer to home for me than it did for you, just because.
Well, that's the thing. So, do me a favor. So this guy was like what, Tommy in the Power Rangers, or?
Yeah, he was the Green Ranger, Dragon.
Okay, so tell me, explain to me as someone who knows nothing about Power Rangers, aside from they're the action figure guys. Like, what you got about? What can you tell me about Jason?
He was
David
the Green Ranger, Dragon.
I know. Aside from the green, what the heck
Dragon,
is that?
I'm trying to say I don't know much about the actual character. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure he started out as the Green Ranger, and then there was some sort of fake out death. It was almost kind of like a Racer X sort of situation, I think,
right,
if I'm remembering correctly. And he came back as I don't know. I don't I want to say the Black Ranger, but I could be misquoting that. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's Power Ranger fans, if they're watching, they're screaming at their TVs about this, but
he was so much more than the one Ranger.
No, but like I said, Dragon, I do how I related to him was through the context of, he was one of those people that was really big. I do think it's an interesting case because he kind of got pigeonholed into the role, but also he embraced the role at the same time, So it was I don't know. I just do know that he did have some lifelong mental health struggles, and it was unfortunately a suicide. So that definitely hit close to home for me.
Yeah, I think he attended a lot of cons. He did a lot of
absolutely. He was very big in that world for sure.
Yeah, he was slated to do GalaxyCon this month, which obviously, he and Kevin Conroy both. There are a lot of convention cancellations this month.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, I mean this past November. All right. Then, of course, sadly, 2 hours ago, we incurred yet another loss, and it was a rather memorable one.
Not Bob. Dragon, I feel like this is just it's technically not in November, right? But it's hot off the press, just
it would have been
a little slap on the way out the door almost. I don't know. It sucks. I don't even know what to say.
Had he not died today, we would have probably waited, but he literally died 2 hours before we went on. So,
and it's one of those things where it's because Dragon, the name Bob doesn't really resonate with me, if I'm being honest with you. But we just had this, right before I went on air. As soon as I Googled him and I saw the sweater in particular, I was like, oh, of course, that guy.
Yeah, so maybe we could say his full name before we just say Bob, given all the Bob news this month.
Bob McGrath, yes.
Thank you. So Bob McGrath, yes, of course, well known as Bob Johnson from Sesame Street. He was, if I recall, Tiki, I looked this up briefly. He's he's, I believe, the longest cast member on Sesame Street.
Oh wow!
He was the human actor who was there the longest.
Right.
I assume that means he predates Maria.
I thought Maria was a day one thing. I could be mistaken about that.
That's the thing. I know Maria's definitely in the 70s, so I don't know. Point being. That's the thing, but point being, Bob was there. Sounds like Bob was there since the beginning, and apparently, two of his favorite things they ever did on Sesame Street was the Mr. Hooper scene, which, of course, how can we forget it? And apparently, this is kind of very cyclical and very sad given the month that we're in currently. Uh, the Sesame Street Christmas special.
Right, right.
Yeah, which Bob had like a little song there. He plays like the song for the kids, and he has his wife, who I believe is deaf.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was rather I don't know. Bob, there was a comfort with Bob, and you're right. Though, so you see, the guy in the sweater is kind of a comfort there, and he was like an adult you trusted.
He's
He
almost
usually,
like the character actor of Sesame Street, if that makes sense.
yeah, in a sense, like the idea is like here's the thing. Luis had like some authority to him. Bob was very affable. Bob was very down to earth, and also like Oscar could play around with Bob, in which Bob would tee him up in like a positive, hey Oscar, how you doing? And Oscar would say something snippy to him. That's usually how that dynamic went. So yeah, so it's a shame, man. Pretty much all of our Sesame Street, kind of our old friends from Sesame Street, are passing away one by one. It's rather tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Icky Breaky World says, I watched Violet Night yesterday. It was fun. I did like it, but man, I was kind of hoping it would be more over the top than it was. Dragon, I believe we'll be talking about that movie this week as part of our seasonal shenanigans. Is that right?
No, that's correct. Yes.
All right. So yeah, look out for that. Look out for that. I still need to see it. I'll probably see it tomorrow. All right. Okay, well, Dragon, we're getting out of the death zone, thank God.
Thank God. This is terrible.
But Jesus Christ, this next news is almost as depressing, honestly.
Yeah. So remember Happy-Go-Lucky Chris Hemsworth?
Oh God.
Yeah. Well, fate.
Sorry, I don't know. I don't mean to laugh. I just don't know how else to respond.
Well, fate dealt him a crappy hand. Like a 2 and a 7 this month. So apparently, Chris Hemsworth, he does this. He did this show for Disney Plus, like Limitless or something. That might be in conjunction with National Geographic. I'm not sure. I didn't watch it, but apparently, he learned that he has he has a genetic trait that means there's a very strong possibility he will inherit Alzheimer's from his family.
Yeah, so I did not know that Alzheimer's was a genetic thing. I always assumed it was more of like a brain deterioration thing, like more of a biological thing. So,
I mean, Alzheimer's can run in a family, I think.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the point being, he did like I assume what happened was probably like almost like a reality show sort of moment where it's like you kind of like an actual
one. It was actually like on the show.
Well, again, I wasn't able to look into the clip because I didn't know which episode it was in, but I have to. He was doing that show and he found it out, so I'm going to assume it was like basically probably a more dour version of. Probably there might have been like a more. I'm assuming again, I haven't seen it, but I'm imagining it's probably like imagine if you had a somber moment in in the world according to Jeff Goldblum, in which Hemsworth probably uses himself as like a test.
No, Dragon. Don't joke about Goldblum, okay? Don't use examples with Goldblum.
Why?
Well, I'm just saying, I know what you're going for, but don't put it out into the world.
Well, I'm just saying.
Cherish our celebrities, Dragon, all right?
No, I'm saying, what if... Okay.
No, fine. I hear what you're saying. I'm just like, I just do not wish anything bad upon Goldblum.
I don't wish anything bad on Goldblum either.
I'm just saying, like, you're going to cite an example of, like, what if we're watching a moment of The World According to Jeff Jeff Goldblum, and he kind of like had a somber, like, well, that there's something bad that happened and I have some bad news to share. I don't want that. Yeah, don't put that out to the world.
Goldblum's doing a second on the Heimlich maneuver while he's eating the wafers.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
Oh, jeez.
But
yeah, I mean, geez, it's, it is just one of those things where it's just a big weight,
Yeah. So essentially, Chris Hemsworth, he's taking a break from things to spend some time with his family and just kind of like decompress for a bit while he kind of processes things. So
he's been pretty openly salty about how Love and Thunder turned out too.
Well, Tegan, actually, that's not necessarily true. Now,
really,
my read on the situation is that people have taken him really out of context. And I think he gave an honest opinion, and people just have really like turned to
that is Hollywood for you. If someone gives an honest opinion, they jump all over it.
The way I read, so basically, Hemsworth. Long story short, Hemsworth said that he doesn't think they can do if he did another Thor movie, it would not be like Love and Thunder. Now, my take on what he meant by that is like, I don't think I can sustain a movie with that tone again because, you know, it's
Mhm.
like that movie is really broad. Ragnarok was the introduction of that tone, or kind of a refresh on the Thor character, which then got kind of reined in with the Infinity War movies. And then you have this, which is like, okay, well, this at least kind of builds to like the ending of that film, and which that's probably as far as you can go with that. And I think Hemsworth's saying you can't really kind of like dial back that character growth and then make him go even sillier for another entire film. I think he's just saying, I don't think I can do that again, where people have redirected, like, man, he's like the rest of us. We didn't really care for that Love and Thunder movie. We
Mhm.
thought it could have been better. Where people are saying, that's the nail in Waititi's, because there's people saying, take that, Waititi, nail in the coffin, ha ha
You know
ha.
what it actually kind of reminds me of is it kind of reminds me of Mark Hamill's comments about Luke Skywalker, which ironically enough, Dragon, you and I, as much as we respect Mark Hamill, I'm sorry, I don't mean to throw you into the line of fire as far as The Last Jedi goes, but you like what they did with Luke's arc in that movie for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, again, of the three plot lines in Rise of Skywalker, I liked
It's
all the.
absolutely the most compelling, yeah.
Yeah, I like the Luke
It's
stuff.
the
Yeah.
one, honestly, Dragon. Like the more I look back on, I'm sorry, we're saying Rise of Skywalker, not the Last Jedi, not Rise of Skywalker.
Great, thanks, and Mister. That was always your go-to, and you're throwing Rise of Skywalker at
Well,
me, and there we go.
fuck Rise of Skywalker. Anyways, the more I look back on Last Jedi, it is a very flawed film, but I still cannot bring myself to dislike any of the stuff that takes place in the Rey storyline. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like, I know that's like a hot take political statement. I'm like laying all my cards on the line by stating that, but
look again, just with the Last Jedi, it's just like the core story that actually does matter in that movie. Just the Rey, Kylo Ren, and Luke story of it all, like those three characters and everything we kind of learn about those characters, and that all that stuff basically filtered through Luke Skywalker. All that matters. Canto Bite could have been like a miniseries or something, or we didn't need it in that movie. And the whole other stuff, well, just it wasn't good.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
The kamikaze moment was cool though.
Oh yeah, you're right. That moment was really cool. Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. Like that. Again, it could have been Admiral Akbar. It's a rescue.
It should have been Admiral Akbar. Absolutely.
It's not a trap. It's a rescue.
It's a rescue. Oh god. All right. Anyways, let's move on.
Yes. So moving on to less bad news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Legendary Pictures. This is a big shakeup. They are moving from Warner to Sony. Dragon, it has not been a good year for Warner Brothers, man. It really hasn't.
No, it hasn't. No. Yeah, I mean, I blame Zaslav. I really do. I think he's the poster child for all things going wrong at HBO Max right now. I mean, honestly, to me, the writing was on the wall the moment they got rid of their originals. Like, what? How do you get rid of your originals unless Disney literally steals them
HBO
from
Max,
you?
like as soon as the animation stuff kind of went down, I was like, nope, I cannot in good consciousness give this company money anymore. Nope.
So Legendary is essentially pulling the ripcord. They're taking Godzilla and assumably some other things with them.
You know what this reminds me of, Dragon? It reminds me of a way larger scale version of the Channel Awesome situation in some ways. Like the Channel Awesome situation was obviously a lot more personal, but this is like full corporations being like, nope, don't want to associate with you anymore.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, just again, it's probably, going this. Well, unfortunately, here's the thing. Unfortunately, everything's going to Sony, which means it's going to be, you can only watch it through Stars, which is going to be annoying as heck. But I mean, Sony kind of needs all the help they can get right now, unfortunately, which I really wish with the next bit of news, someone could negotiate with Sony to get some Spider-Man rights liberated, but who knows?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, outside of the Spider-Verse film, Sony is...
That's something outside of just in live action, just a live action Spider-Man rights. That's all we need.
All right. But yeah, regardless, it should be an interesting turn. We'll see what happens with it.
Yeah.
And in other big news, goodbye, Bob. Hello, Bob.
One Bob goes, one Bob enters.
Goodbye, Bob. Goodbye, Bob.
Hiya, Bob. Come on in.
Okay, so seriously, honestly, Dragon, I got to admit, I am very, very, of course, seeing Chapek leave. Chef's kiss, very, very satisfying moment. And especially, Dragon, I got to admit, the more I look into it, the more this fucking Elton John concert could be just the whole, like, the setting for, like, the whole last act of a biopic, Dragon. It's freaking fascinating how much all the drama ties into that Elton John concert.
So maybe just to kind of directly say it as well. I keep saying these headlines, so people aren't guessing. Like people think we're talking about Bob McGrath for all we know. When you're saying the two Bobs and everything. Yes, JPEG's leaving and Bob Iger's come back.
Thank you. I think I wonder if there's any, like, do you think, what is the possibility that there's, like, anyone watching who's like, wait, oh my God, that must have passed through my radar. I didn't know JPEG was out.
I don't know. I think it's possible, T, because I had to break the news to one of our friends about the Iger thing, so I don't think I don't know. I think now it's in the stratosphere. I'm saying, like, when it happened, not a lot of people knew until, like, they learned, like, a day or two later.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was a bomb that dropped on Sunday, man. I mean, it really shook things up.
So, yeah, I mean, I had heard, I don't know about you, T, I mean, I had heard there were murmurs that Iger was, like, around and kind of, like, they were kind of maybe talking to him. I mean, Iger, when he left, amidst all the chaos, like, there was, like, he was just kind of hovering around, and, like, so that's probably why Iger was, like, it wasn't, like, a far stretch that he would come back. At the end of the day, with Chapek's leadership and everything, and him, being ousted, I think, ultimately, T, I think Chapek was the poster child for Disney, faltering during the pandemic, floundering and everything during the pandemic. And I think from the sounds of it, I think, now, mind you, this is not like they haven't legitimized it. It's just like speculation in the company from what it sounds like. From what I hear, it sounds like the big final straw and everything is that Chapek might have been cooking the books for dirty accounting for Disney Plus, not delivering like it was proposed to, or at least as they're publicly saying it is. That's the rumors.
What they are saying, indeed.
So that's what I'm hearing. It sounds like, again, I'm not saying necessarily that's all on Chapek, but it sounds like Chapek, whether it's on him or not, he's the fall guy for that sort of thing. So possibly that's what's going down. I'm not sure, but regardless, Chapek up to this point had made some reckless business decisions. I like to think, and the only defense I could say for Chapek, assuming any of the speculation is true, is that perhaps floundering to kind of like shift money into certain accounts and try to compensate for Disney Plus, probably tanking numbers. That's leads to reckless decisions in business, like upcharging people and trying to sue Scarlett Johansson back, and get into the whole thing with Scarlett Johansson over Black Widow. But I mean, look, I trust Iger. I've always liked Iger. I read his book. I dig the guy, man. I really do. He did a lot of good stuff. He cares about the brands he brought in, particularly all the good. Honestly, he always has a lot of goodwill with me because of what he did for Pixar and kind of sorting that out. So I will say this, though. I do question if it's a desperate move that we're bringing Iger back.
Oh, it's absolutely a desperate move. Absolutely, Dragon.
Maybe
it is an act of desperation. No
well, maybe the question of it being desperate is probably the poor way to phrase that. I guess what I'm saying is, if it's the right move, if it shows desperation, is it the right move to show desperation right now? I guess.
So I think what I like about the news is just the whole idea that this is not permanent, Dragon. I like that they announced up front that it was going to be a 2-year thing, and in that time, they were going to properly find a successor. Now, is that successor? We have to wait and see, of course. The successor can be worse than Chapek for all we know. But I do like the fact that we have a timetable for this.
So let me get this straight, Dan. This is detail I did not hear. So you're saying that Iger's only there temporarily for 2 years while they're looking for
right now. It's a 2-year contract, yeah. And the idea is that after the 2 years, he's going to pick a successor.
Okay, well, that sounds a little more reasonable.
Which means it's like another HBO Max, or not HBO Max, but it's another like biopic in the making. Dragon, seriously, like the Elton John concert could be like the season 1 finale, and then season 2 is like, okay, who's going to be the successor?
I mean, that does sound a little more promising. It's the fact that Iger was just kind of hanging around because he had such goodwill with the company. It's like, okay, well, Bob, can you help us out? Can you step in temporarily? Yeah, sure, guys. What the heck?
Absolutely. That's how I feel.
Heck?
Yeah.
Yeah. What the heck? Christopher Cousins, get in here. We have a biopic.
Oh God. Oh geez. All right.
Christopher Cousins, Dean Norris. Let's make this Bob off biopic go. Let's
Battle of the Bobs.
Yep.
All right.
Anyways.
So let's get into actual, movie news and not just, tragedy and corporate shakeups.
Yeah, so, less movie, it was more kind of TV news. Quentin
Mhm.
Tarantino. He's instead of doing a movie, and I think it's just Tarantino kind of walking the line of the whole my last movie, so I'm gonna do something not technically a
Yeah,
movie,
he's
so I can keep.
literally been. I don't. I'll believe it when I see it, man. Honestly.
Well, I think right now he's looking for technicalities because I think he regrets saying, I only got one more
Uh-huh.
left in me. He says, oh man, I want to do more stuff. I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to make a limited series. And if I do a movie, if it's Kill Bill, then technically it's like a part 3. So it's still all one movie. But yeah, he's doing an 8 episode limited series of what? We have no idea. But Tarantino and TV, that could be interesting.
I'm in for it, man. I'm in for it because Tarantino. I mean, I really think the man. I mean, his films are long for a reason, and honestly, if he can really, get into the pacing of an 8 episode rhythm, I really think we could be in for something.
Is there a Tarantino movie you don't like?
No, not that
I can't really
I
think
think
of
of,
a miss
honestly,
that
no.
Tarantino has really had.
Honestly, the closest for me would probably be, and this is a stretch. This is a big stretch, but like, well, Death Proof probably.
That's
Like,
the only one I haven't seen.
and then also I would say Kill Bill Volume 2 would be like in the lower rung, but honestly, just because Volume 1 is so good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's the
I
thing.
feel
You
like
kind of
Volume 2 is definitely a really good solid film, but I feel like Volume 1 is like perfect. It's like Tarantino personified.
well, again, that's kind of like a whole part 1, part 2, kind of the same story
Right.
sort of thing. So
It's
it's kind of
ironic
hard
because
to.
usually the part 2 is the better film, but I feel like Kill Bill very much not the case.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think I do prefer part 1 to part 2,
Uh-huh.
but yeah. All right, let's see. So, movie news. So Spielberg, you know that guy, a little independent filmmaker.
He is very much the front runner to win another Best Director Oscar this year. By the way, Dragon on the Gold Derby polls and everything. It's not
Got
even
to admit, if he
close.
wins the Oscar this year, it's gonna be a little self-indulgent.
I honestly really agree. I got to admit, it's gotten to the point with the Fablemans where I've kind of rolled back around where it's rolling out so slowly into theaters. And Dragon, I know you're experiencing the same thing. I mean,
Yeah. Again, folks, we were hoping to get the Fablemans in this
I mean,
month,
at
but
least I don't know if you're experiencing like for me, it's almost to the point where it's like I've heard so many other people talk about it at this point where it's like, okay, like I guess I'll see it when I see it then. Like for me, the hype is almost kind of come and gone.
I'd really like to see it, but I'm really ticked off that I'm probably not gonna be able to see it
Yeah,
until like next
same,
year at this
same.
point. I think that's ridiculous.
I mean, I hear a slow rollout, guys, but come on now.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyway, so Spielberg, he is it looks like his next. I assume his next movie, Spielberg's next movie, is he's doing a sequel to the famous movie Bullet.
which I've got to admit, Trek, I've never seen. I don't know much about it.
Well, Bullet is well known for having like one of the greatest car chases in cinema.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the big thing the Bullet has going for it. Also starred Steve McQueen. And the big thing here is that the rise of the we kind of this was I guess this was kind of announced that he was doing something in relation to Bullet, but we have two things that we had that we did not have before. We know directly it is not a remake, it is a sequel, and also Bradley Cooper he's playing the Steve McQueen character. He's playing Frank Bullet.
Okay, I mean Bradley Cooper is a Steve McQueen
Yeah,
type. I mean that pretty much checks out. I
yeah,
feel
it's
like
perfect.
Bradley
That's great.
Cooper is kind of the closest thing we like him and Gosling. I feel like are the closest thing we have to like a Steve McQueen type nowadays.
Yeah, again, I think Cooper more so, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think it's good casting. It's I don't know. I gotta be honest. Some things that are coming out this year, some things are on my list here, like things you never thought. Oh, we can never do a sequel to that, but who knows? Maybe we can do a sequel.
Well, Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
that's most likely going to be the biggest box office moneymaker of the year. So
yeah. So
stranger things have happened.
yeah. All right. Let's see. So let's go on to some Marvel news.
Yep. So, Dragon, I'm sorry. Do you know much about what this guy has done beforehand?
Yeah, I know the main thing. The main
We should
reason
probably announce what it is.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. To keep jumping into the headline. We gotta
Okay,
say
I'm
what
sorry.
it is.
The Blade movie, unfortunately, it has gotten another director, and it is not Michael Giacchino, which would have been my fucking dream.
I'll admit, finding out this director, I will say, Giacchino. Initially, I'm just gonna be on front street with you, folks. A part of me thought there was going to be a stipulation of no, we have to get a black director for Blade because we have to, because we must, because this is where Hollywood is now. We can't, but no, We didn't, and that's cool. And that's refreshing. But by the same token, though, if we weren't strict to get a very talented black director on Blade, and we ended up getting a French director on Blade, why couldn't we have gotten Giacchino on Blade? That's my question.
Honestly, it might just be because of something we speculated that he might just want to focus more on composing right now. You know, he did Werewolf by Night, but he doesn't necessarily want to make a career out of it.
I mean, yeah, but he does nothing but compose. I'm saying if he's gonna take, I branched into directing for the first time here.
I hear you.
I did a short. Let me do a movie. I did a special.
It makes
Let
sense.
me do a movie.
It would have been the perfect trajectory. Blade would have been the perfect movie to cut his teeth with. I hear you.
Give me the other hour. I can do it, man. I'm a big boy now. I can do the other hour. Give it to me.
All right.
So anyway, the director we do have is good, but I got to be honest. When I heard his bona fide, I was hoping it was a little more extensive than what I assumed. So, Yan Demanji, and I'm probably butchering that. Yan Demanji. This guy is, I believe, a French director. He was he directed the first episode of Lovecraft Country, the HBO show.
Oh,
Lovecraft
right.
Country.
Is that like pretty much all he's known for? Really?
Well, not necessarily. He also did. Let's see. He did it. I think he did another
he's a
movie.
TV director by and large.
By and large, he did. He's done a few features, but I think this is like Blade will be like his third movie ever. And if I recall,
I'm very much back in the camp of why couldn't we just get Giacchino?
He did movies that. Let me put it this way: he's done 2 other movies, but if I recall, they did not quite get great reviews.
Dude, what? I don't understand. I don't.
Well, it sounds like here's the thing. When initially when they said, "Hey, Lovecraft Country director," I'm saying, "Okay, that makes sense for Blade. Blade's kind of in the Lovecraftian. Obviously, it's very much
sure.
But then I'm hearing he only directed 1 episode of Blade of Lovecraft Country. Really? I
don't know.
I think one of the Lovecraft Country
Blade than I am.
I think one of the Lovecraft Country writers is also working on it with them, which could be interesting. I mean, that's if you do kind of Blade like Lovecraft Country, that is a good idea.
Sure, yeah.
But still, I mean, with Giacchino on the table, and we're not going to be landlocked into getting, like we have to pick from like a list of directors, of very specific directors. Like if we're going to widen it, like we should.
I mean, I don't know, Dragon. Maybe Giacchino could do like a Swamp Thing movie or something. That would be, like a full blown.
I think you mean Man Thing, Tiki.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. You're right.
Get it right. They're very different.
I mean, yes, but for a casual like me, not really.
Well, I was half joking with that, Tiki. They are essentially like Marvel and DC versions of each other.
I mean, I do get that Swamp Thing has like much more of a deep kind of philosophical.
Yeah, Swamp Thing. If I'm being honest, Swamp Thing's cooler. Man Thing just looks cooler.
Right. Anyways,
that's the thing is, Man Thing has that thing where if he touches you, it's like that whole like, fear and stuff. But you saw what he did. He does that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Achy Breaky World. I do think that what Achy Breaky World is saying is pretty much true. That's what I guess the situation probably.
I mean, he is rather new to directing, and maybe he just wants to keep it to short stuff, which I get.
Plus, Blade, that would be a lot of pressure. It's already, it's already a full franchise. I mean, I would guess that probably one of the appeals to doing Werewolf by Night for him was that it was basically a blank slate. So
yeah, but imagine this, man. Imagine if you had Giacchino doing the Monster Mash movie, maybe not Blade, but the sequel to Blade, in which you had Moon Knight, you had Blade, you had Man Thing, and you had Werewolf by Night,
and throw in Dracula. Just throw in the Marvel Dracula.
All right, fine.
That's what you really need.
All right.
Oh God, Achy Breaky World, Tim Burton, that's a solid idea in theory, and I will say that I did quite like Wednesday. We'll get to that, but Tim Burton's never going to work for Disney again, I don't think.
Yeah, he's kind of publicly burned that bridge.
Yeah.
I gotta admit though, wouldn't you be impressed if Disney said, "You know what, Tim? If you want to do it, doors are always open for you."
I would.
Wouldn't that, man? Plus, I mean, with Iger being back for 2 years, just
God.
You know what, Tim? Forget what the other guy said. I know.
What if Bob Iger somehow orchestrates like a full-on Tim Burton renaissance?
If one man can do it, it is the Iger.
Oh God! All right. Anyways.
All right. So great news.
Yes.
Sandman season 2. It's been officially greenlit.
Indeed.
Yeah, we love the Sandman show, and there was some fear going on that maybe it was not going to get picked up, which would have been
I
unfortunate,
was honestly
especially
pretty worried about it. I was worried about it being a Dark Crystal situation.
yeah,
That was my fear.
because Dark Crystal was really building on having
Mhm.
another season to kind of finish out their prequel, and they did not get that.
Mhm.
But I mean, plus we're assumably going to open on one of our favorite installments from the Sandman, which is very exciting.
Yeah. Midsummer Night's Dream, is that the word that's going to be the premiere?
Well, I mean, they haven't said it to you. I'm just saying that's literally what the next chapter is in that book. So, I mean, given that we did the cat thing,
Sure.
it's literally, it's the. I'm saying logically, is given how they group together stories, and they pretty much cover them linearly, and it's pretty
And
much
they
like
already
the
kind
first-
of work Shakespeare in.
That's what I'm saying. They started the Shakespeare thing, so it's
Uh-huh.
like Chekhov's gun. It's like Chekhov's quill.
Chekhov's Shakespeare.
Yeah, it's Billy's quill, man.
All right.
All right.
You ever see Stardust, Dragon?
The De
Speaking
Niro
of
thing?
Neil Gaiman things.
Wait, the De Niro thing with Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yes.
I knew of it. I did not see it.
So De Niro has a really cool thing because he plays a captain and he calls himself Captain Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And the logic of that is that none of his crew knows who Shakespeare is, and it just sounds like a badass name, like Shakespeare.
Right.
I don't know. I've always really loved that detail. That's always been one of my favorite character name things.
It's like the James Bond of pirates. He takes his beer shaken, not stirred.
Exactly.
Right.
All right.
All right, so let's do a little trailer talk here. So a few trailers. Obviously, we've already talked about the major trailers. We're not going to cover those again, but we did have a few other spare trailers we stuck.
Dragon, I do want to throw in one that was not on your radar at all, but I just have to shout it out because it's kind of been breaking the internet. Have you heard of a thing called Cocaine Bear?
I mean, yeah, but I haven't watched it.
Oh, Dragon, it looks marvelous.
So is it a bear on cocaine?
That the whole thing is it's literally a bear breaks into I assume the evidence locker of a small town police station, literally eats a whole bag of cocaine, a whole pound of cocaine, a brick of cocaine.
Thinking it's like sugar, which bears do really like. Sugar.
And the bear just goes nuts. Dragon, I don't want to dwell on it, but it looks amazing.
Just one thing I gotta know. Is this based on a true story?
Yes.
Is this a documentary or just a kind of a
No, it's not a documentary. I wish it was a documentary.
That's what I'm saying. This is
actually find the documentary more interesting.
I know, right? Because if this was if you told me this was a documentary,
I don't know. Netflix, you got to think Netflix is okay, this cocaine bear thing is really breaking up the internet. Documentary crews, get on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll mention this because honestly, when I saw Cocaine Bear, there's one thing I was thinking of just in conjunction with the bear gimmick. Bert Kreischer, the comedian, he has this movie that's coming out, which unfortunately is not just directly coming to Netflix.
Not that kind of bear, Dragon.
I know. I'm saying no. Seriously, Bert Kreischer, he's had a bear encounter though, in which he did that kind of like a dare show sorts in which he does crazy stuff because he's the machine. Point being, Bert Kreischer. You never watched that stand-up bit, did you?
I don't think I have. No.
I keep telling you, love that stand. They're literally making a movie based on this bit of stand-up.
Oh no, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I have watched that. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
So anyway, real quick, because I don't have to go through a whole trailer.
The one where he gets where he goes to the foreign country, right? And
he goes to Russia.
The mob
goes to Russia and he befriends the Russian
mob.
mob.
Yeah.
I guess his production company or something, they're making a movie that's kind of a sequel to that stand-up bit in which his history and they're going to recap that story in the movie and he's coming back to haunt them.
Oh my god.
Anyways, the point about the Cocaine Bear, every time I saw it, I kept thinking it's Bert Kreischer when he had an encounter with a bear, which was he had marshmallows in his mouth and it was a whole
No, Cocaine Bear, absolutely probably something that is not going to be on your radar, but I am waiting with bated breath for, Dragon. I really am.
All right, so a bear in rehab, that'll be the sequel.
No, not nearly as entertaining.
No, it'll be like Michael Keaton in Clean and Sober, though. It'll be very compelling.
All right. Okay, so trailers. Elemental Dragon. The internet is being way too harsh on this thing.
Really, they're not liking it.
Okay, I don't know. Again, Dragon, I have to kind of view this lens. Achy Breaky World kind of called me out on it earlier, where not everyone like views the world through my YouTube algorithm, obviously. But there's a lot of people that are saying it's like a ripoff of Inside Out, which I mean, I kind of get. But Dragon, I gotta tell you, I really like this teaser trailer. I really did. I thought it was. I honestly thought it kind of called back to that classic sort of Pixar teaser trailer where it kind of just gives you a taste of the world, and that's it, and that's all you need. And I like it. I dig the animation. I think the style works really well. I think the elements flow into each other really well. I don't know what people want nowadays, Dragon. The internet is getting frustrating, at least my corner of the internet.
I mean, yeah, aesthetically, it's very intriguing. The world building, for really good world building. I believe Pete Sohn's directing this, so that'll be good to give him like a proper bite at the apple, because before he was just kind of thrown onto a project. This is going to be him from the ground up.
But of course, Pete Sohn, he kind of cut his teeth with the oh God, what's the name of the cloud movie?
Partly cloudy.
Partly cloudy. Yes. Thank you.
So, but yes, that's the thing. So we kind of saw a taste of that there, and again, that was kind of a character that was comprised of an element, essentially. So we're kind of going full tilt with that here. And honestly, the thing that fascinates me most about this, I know a lot of people that's the thing. I think people looking in kind of like the small scale.
Also, apparently, the concept of like the fire girl and the water guy is a ripoff of a video game. Apparently, like an indie game. But I mean, I don't know. It's just
Tiki,
that's one of those things where it's like elements are such a basic concept. It's I don't know.
Tiki, they said the same thing about Inside Out, the cranium command thing. So
Yeah, the internet sucks, man.
My point is with that in mind, it just feels like you could easily say, and I'm not looking at this in a negative way. I'm just saying this is like, hey, it's kind of a metaphysical, literalized metaphysical version of Inside Out, which is not a bad thing. It's just, what if we just kind of looked at the world in kind of like familiar terms, only we've kind of made people, instead of out of ionized emotions, made them out of elements. But more so, and I'm sure a lot of people jump down the throat saying like, hey, we already did this better at WALL-E. Like, how can they ever top WALL-E? Well, it's the idea of I like the idea of a love story in which these two characters cannot touch each other. Fundamentally, they're polar opposites, but there's an attraction there. That really fascinates me with the story of this thing. So there's like an elemental
from X-Men's favorite movie.
There you go. That's what I think people are not there. People are, again, they're cursing the darkness before they're lighting a candle with our new character Ember.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So John Wick 4, Dragon, I got to admit, I'm not an action movie guy. I don't know. Like I admire the technical aspects of John Wick. It's just not my type of movie. So it looks cool, but that's about it for me. I don't know. Like I've never been into John Wick the same way a lot of other people have been.
I mean, look, I like John Wick, but I will admit, John Wick in this fourth movie, I think, will be the ultimate test of it. Because, there's a magic number of 3. When you go beyond 3, that's when you're really in the danger zone, where I think John Wick is at risk of, especially now that he's permeated the culture and everyone's doing their own version of a John Wick, now even with the Christmas.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because John Wick did kind of raise like the way of how we make action, which is a good way to make action. Let's do that.
But there is kind of a point of saturation, though. It's kind of become a formula.
You're right, and the concern I have with John Wick 4 is that I forget if there's like a 4 and 5 planned. I hope it's just 4. That's my hope, because they're going to run out of story on John. Because at a certain point, like, well, if John Wick survived all that, he's probably going to be fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like. And there does seem to be an element of finality here. I mean, I guess, and because it seems we're getting into his background, which is, again, there's like a mystery angle with him and his past, so that's kind of interesting. And the simple premise of this one is like, okay, he's basically fighting for his life, and he has to get to a place by sunrise, and everyone's trying to kill him on the way to getting that place for the final fight of his life by sunrise. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. I can get on board for that. But it is going to. It's going to get repetitive if it's like a 2.5 hour movie of just him getting from point A to point B for one fight. That's going to be a bit much.
Right.
So there is a danger of John Wick of just like how many more cool ways can John Wick kill people or be in a fight with somebody when we've already kind of done all the best versions of this in the previous 3 movies. So I'm pulling for it, but it is indeed it's on Shea Graham. But also, fun fact. Clancy Brown's in this one. Good old Clancy Brown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Plus, John Wick brings up all of our old buddies and puts them in there occasionally. It's like, yay.
All right.
Very lastly,
Clancy Brown, I literally just saw the SpongeBob musical.
Is he in it?
Well, no, Dragon. I didn't see Clancy Brown live on stage.
See,
No,
that
I
that
frickin'
would have
wish.
that would have been amazing, wouldn't it? And
But it
playing
was
the part of
delightful,
Mr. Krabs, the
though.
actual Mr. Krabs.
Dude, you know he would kill it.
Of course he would.
No, it was a really. I mean that musical, like it's really really solid, man. I don't know. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Really
Anyway.
good production design.
So,
Anyways.
let's talk about something that does not have quite the best production design.
Oh God. Yeah, Dragon. This is just gonna be this is gonna be the new Asylum. It really is. You know what I'm talking about as far as like, the new kind of like Sharknado. Just this whole I mean, honestly, when I first heard about the Winnie the Pooh thing, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting and subversive. But yeah, no, this is gonna be like, if this is how we're just gonna do everything that goes into the public domain now, this is gonna get really old really fast.
So first off, let's say what it is. Mean One, yes. Okay, so Mean One. So Tiki, I think I found out what the loophole is here. So the Grinch is not public domain, but what they're doing is there's a parody loophole on this. So you'll notice they will not be. They've changed They can't use any of the lines from the book at all during this. They can't call him the Grinch, and it's like I think it's Cindy Lou. There is no Who, and it's not Louisville. I think they went with Newville or something. I think that's what they call it. The point being, so they found like this. I think. Winnie the Pooh inspired them with that whole thing. Let's do hard movie versions of these beloved American classics, and then we're just going to go like full tilt to these beloved classics, and let's just
the one that would actually work is Alice in Wonderland, because American McGee kind of proved that would work. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they took a stab at that.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be coming up soon too.
You would think.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, Mean One does not look great. It
really looks like trash. It really looks like trash, honestly. There's not any good thing I can say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Achy Breaky Rolled, he says that David Howard Thornton playing the Killer Grinch, who also played Art the Clown in the Terrifier franchise. Honestly, Mean One does look better than Winnie the Pooh.
Only in the sense of, okay, if you look...
I honestly find Mean One more insulting. Maybe that's just like the Seuss purist in me. I don't know.
I agree with you, but by the same token, I do like this thought that did come to mind when I rewatched the trailer before this again. It does strike you as like if someone... if someone born in the 2000s were traumatized by the Jim Carrey Grinch, and they ended up like, I want to capture that and put that on film. And well, there you go.
If that was the angle, if that's what they were going for, I would be into it. I just don't think this film is clever enough to.
I mean, Tiki, if you look at, I'll say this: when you look at that Grinch design, the costume, and the way they draw the Mean One and everything. It's very much modeled after the Jim Carrey, Rick Baker.
I mean, Dragon, I will say I was one of those kids. Like, did I ever tell you that I would literally avoid movie trailers to avoid the Grinch trailer? Did that ever come up in our conversation?
I mean, possibly once, but I don't know if it was to an excessive length that you're making it sound like right now. But
no, I'm saying I would literally stand outside of the movie theater until I heard the logo for my movie theater come on.
Was this because you were anticipating the Grinch movie, or you?
No, it was because I fucking hated the Grinch costume and he scared the crap out of me.
So you hated it because it was scary.
Yes. Okay. You know the bit in the trailer where it's like, you're the Grinch. That, for some reason, Dragon, that scared the shit out of me. I don't know why. I don't know why that got to me like it did.
So yeah, this is definitely not this movie's definitely not for you then, it seems.
Well, like I said, if it was legitimately scary, if they were actually going for a fear factor, then I would then I'd be a little bit more.
Well, I mean, it sounds. I gotta think this is not my kind of movie, but it sounds like the Grinch actually killed your parents instead of having a happy-go-lucky ending.
This feels like an Asylum movie. If this is actually done in the style of something where it's trying to be.
Honestly, it looks real cheap.
Trying to actually be scary, then I would be more into it. But it legitimately just looks like an Asylum movie.
Yeah, it does have a cheap feel about it. Yes.
So, anyways,
okay.
Okay, so yeah, we can finally move on to the 2022 movies, November 2022 movies.
Road to film.
So, Wakanda Forever.
So yeah, this is kind of the the somber. There's very much a somber transition thesis of Phase 4 of the MCU. We're addressing loss and the shifts in status quo, pretty much all throughout the majority, if not all, the stuff we have in Phase 4. It's a running thread, and yeah, this movie, I think you and I have kind of agreed. It's a little too jam packed in the middle, a little jam packed in the middle. And there's also the unavoidable handicap of, well, I mean, the best part of Black Panther is, well, it was Black Panther himself, and he's not in this movie, and that's going to be
the second best part of Black Panther was Eric Killmonger, and he's dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of a lose-lose.
So, unfortunately, that's not to say the movie's bad. It's just to say that the movie is
I wouldn't call it bad at all.
Yeah, no. It's not going to surpass the original, which is already kind of a disadvantage when you're doing a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I mean, it's... I mean, for me, it's less the fact. It's honestly a little less the fact that, of course, we go in knowing, okay, we're going to be mourning Chadwick Boseman. It's going to be great. And obviously, Coogler is going to treat that with the reverence it deserves. But the problem I have is that in a movie without Black Panther, and they call Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and we wait till the third act to get Black Panther, and that feels kind of off to me. It just feels like man, we really waited.
There was a moment when Shuri first came out in her Black Panther costume. And there was literally one audience member who tried to do, the whole start clapping thing. It just went over like a lead balloon. And Dragon, to me, that kind of personified the entire experience I had watching it. It's not a bad movie. There's some very good stuff in it. Angela Bassett, I'm legitimately rooting for her to get nominated for Best Supporting Actress for this movie. I thought what she did in the limited screen time she had was incredible. Probably one of the best pieces of acting in the entirety of the MCU, I think. But this film just feels so overly bloated. To me, Dragon, it felt like a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. That's in the bad sense of the word. That's the best way I can describe it. The mythology was too convoluted. I don't know. And Namor, it's funny. I feel like people are very split on Namor, Dragon. Either they really love him, Jacob Gulliver actually really, really dug Namor, based on his feedback on the movie that I heard. But for me, he was interesting conceptually, I guess, but I don't know. He just really fell into the shadow of Killmonger.
You know what it is with Namor for me when I think on the movie. So I think it was a solid introduction to Namor, and I liked him. But when I think on the movie, it occurs to me that there's a problem with Namor, and that it does feel like we're really forcing a conflict of why would Wakanda really be fighting Talokan? Why would they really be going at each other's throats? And again, this is the stuff we're forcing in Act 2. Okay, they need some fight going on here, and we need to visit outside the kingdoms, which are important. So we're going to do okay. So we're going to have a little side adventure. Introduces Riri Williams, who was cool, but again,
I genuinely liked Riri Williams. I thought she had a good. I liked the flavor that she brought. Kind of like that. Kind of the more street smart kind of vibe, as opposed to the the regal nature of the Wakandans. I actually really like that contrast.
Yeah, and I love how she kind of parallels Shuri and all that, and I think she helps Shuri's arc.
I actually did like most of the comedy when it came to Okoye not fitting in the college, Dragon. That's where the comedy of the movie was actually really working for me.
Yeah, so I mean, on the whole, I mean, this movie it's good, it's cathartic, but it just feels ultimately like a little held back in things versus what we had with the first movie, which again, it's a little unavoidable, but by the same time, the things that we could avoid is in terms of we need conflict. It feels like we're forcing some conflict here.
We need more M'Baku.
We do. We need
way more M'Baku.
We need more M'Baku. I don't know. It just feels like I think there was so much
This whole movie could have literally just been a power struggle for the Wakanda throne, and it would have been way better.
I mean, it could have been that, but again, it could have been that. But by the same token, it just feels like Wakanda dealing a political crisis of some kind with Wakanda feels like it might have been a little bit more, had a little more teeth than okay, and we're gonna spend a lot of time with Namor's going out of his way to kill this scientist who was really following orders and being manipulated by higher powers. That's kind of what.
No, yeah, thank you. I honestly thought it was convoluted why Riri Williams was even involved in the plot. Honestly, Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyway, point being, again, I think there's some story issues, but we hit our emotional beats and our acting beats very well with Wakanda Forever. So I mean, again, there's a lot that this movie got right, but again, it's in a very weird place, and it's it's kind of the big capper to Phase 4, and it kind of, again, honestly, it is representative of Phase 4 in total. There's a lot of good here, but again, it doesn't quite hit the high highs of
no, yeah, you're
Phase
right.
3.
It does kind of encapsulate Phase 4 for sure.
So again, it's about loss and transition, but again, not quite
I still think that trailer is like one of the best edited trailers in quite a while, man. That transition into the Kendrick song, just chef's kiss. Anyways, okay, so weird. The Al Yankovic story, aka the the spark of my monthly obsession.
Yeah, so this is a very fun concept, a parody of a biopic. Of course, if you're going to do a movie on Weird Al Yankovic, it has to be a parody.
I love how this movie isn't technically directed by Weird Al, but you can just feel the man's fingerprints just all over it.
Yeah. Well, wait, one could say you could feel his fingerprints all over it.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, it's very true and tongue in cheek to the Weird Al Yankovic style, and the biopic tropes in which we're just kind of like poking fun at them, like here's what we've seen all the time, but what's the Weird Al slant on a biopic? Well, we're gonna go really broad, we're gonna give him like kind of like troubled relationship with his father in the most over the top way possible.
Oh God,
he's brutally beating up accordion salesman.
I thought I told you to shut up.
Pretty sure you didn't, but I can do that.
Did I ever tell you the other big role that Toby Huss is known for besides Artie, the strongest man in the world?
No, not besides Artie.
Khan from King of the Hill.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Get out of here. That's Khan.
Yes, that is Khan, believe it or not.
The Laotian neighbor, he's Khan.
Yes.
Huh.
Isn't that trippy?
That's...
I mean, in a modern context, maybe a little politically.
Well, no. I mean, look, it's the same. It's the same thing as Family Guy, though. Or Family Guy, it's like
no,
Cleveland
for sure. It's literally the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland is.
I honestly feel like with Khan, though, it's maybe like just because Khan is a little bit more realistic of a character, it's maybe a little bit more touchy. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. But oh, cool. I did not know that. I wish we would have mentioned during the other conversation.
I did not know during the other conversation.
Oh, well, that's why. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So he's good.
But yes, I don't know. I feel like this movie very much it's just a fun time overall. It's not the strongest as far as like narrative drive. I still feel like the stopover with Pablo Escobar is really fun, but kind of slows down the movie a little bit. But other than that, I mean, it's not an Oscar contender by any means, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, Tiki, we know what's going to happen if he wins that Oscar.
What?
He's going to go up on the stage. Someone's going to take aim.
Oh God.
We know what happens. Anyway,
Daniel Radcliffe, though.
Well, that's the thing. It depends on who wins for this movie. Anyone who wins for this movie, it's going to happen. Again, if he's a producer, then I think technically the producers go on stage during that. If they set it for the movie, if it wins Best Picture,
this movie is not going to win Best Picture. But yes.
I know that. I'm saying in our hilarious what if here, if it won Best Picture, Weird Al's going to be on the stage.
All right. Do not wish anything bad upon that man, Dragon. He is an angel.
Also, if it wins screenplay, he would be there too.
Oh my God. All right. Anyways,
beware anytime anytime Weird Al walks a stage, we all have to be worried now. Regardless. Yeah. So it's man, I like the eureka moments of the parodies too. That's really fun. And of course, we have the the fun kind of like parody of like the of kind of trouble with Eat It. The idea like, oh wait a minute, it's like we're making fun of the biopic inaccuracies with Eat It. For example, like, oh yeah, that didn't happen in real life. So okay, well, let's go really broad with something that's insanely, very obviously not true in a biopic. They're like, wait a minute, Eat It came before the Michael Jackson song.
Right.
Michael Jackson ripped off Weird Al. Anyway, But yeah, so Weird Al.
My personal favorite part of the inaccuracies is just how hard they go with his substance abuse.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Because anyone who knows Weird Al knows he's just like the biggest straight edge when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, straight as an arrow, that Weird Al.
Just like the Leica, I feel like the big highlight of that is the Leica surgeon scene where they're literally just shoving alcohol down his throat just to pierce the performance.
Yep.
God.
Anyway, Weird Al was a fun one, and again, accessible to everyone, I believe. If you go on Roku.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Breaky World makes the observation the Oscars has found a new professional wrestling fan base since last year. Who's gonna slap Kimmel, Dragon?
Well, is he hosting this year?
Yeah, Kimmel's hosting. Yes.
Probably The Rock.
Yeah, I can see that actually.
See,
that just checks out.
see, it'll be even funny because when The Rock does it, Kimmel will like go all the way to the ground. If he just says, "Oh, look how tiny The Rock's suit looks on," Rock gets up and like, bam, it's just all the way across. Or can you imagine this? Can you imagine if the Oscars had Will Smith present an award and Chris Rock was in the front row?
Okay. Now that you mention it, Dragon, there is that tradition where, although Will Smith has been banned from the Oscars, right?
I don't think that's official. I thought they were threatening to ban him. I don't know if they actually did. I think
because I was gonna say there's the tradition where the last person who won. So, like, Best Actor will announce the award for Best Actress.
That's how that goes, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It'll be
technically they have to have him back because of that.
Well, they don't have to do anything, Dragon. It's their award show.
Well, that's true. If they want to get the envelope screwed up and read the wrong award winners, that's their prerogative. They can do that. Just ask Warren Beatty. He's cool with that, man. Well, it's their show.
Anyways.
All right.
Okay, next up we have Disenchanted. Yeah, this was a fun little movie, Dragon, but honestly, the more I think about it, the more it just kind of feels like a little bit of a too little, too late kind of thing.
I mean, look, I think it's solid, but
way more of the other side of things. I'm blanking on I'm so sucky with the names right now.
Edward?
Yes, Edward.
Yeah, James Marsden's character. Yes. What per se?
Way more Edward. I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my brain. It's been a month.
For me, I thought this movie was solid, but again, it's kind of like the Frozen thing I had between Frozen and Frozen 2, only not as glaring. I think that it's lacking the simplicity of the original. I think honestly, there's one singular change, along with more Edward, obviously. Amy Adams is so great in this movie, like her kind of in kind of duality, having this duality about herself, being a very bifurcated performance, where she's kind of playing also like an evil stepmother and kind of being in horror of that happening to her. That's an interesting idea enough. You don't need Maya Rudolph as the bad guy.
We're absolutely totally in conjunction with that. Maya Rudolph, she's having fun in this movie. She's it's not like she's boring in the movie, but yeah, I feel like narratively it would have been a lot stronger if it was. And you know what's interesting, Dragon, is that Disney has been leaning way more into the internal conflict side of things with their movies as far as the antagonists go. Like look at Encanto or something like that, So So the one time they choose to have an actual over-the-top Disney villain, they don't need it.
Yep. I mean, honestly, it just feels like I would have loved her being like a red herring in Act 1 and then going beyond that point, like, okay, so she's not the bad guy, and it's Amy Adams. Would have been fun. So yeah, it's kind of a shoot in. It's kind of a shoot in Act 3 because of that, and you're kind of throwing.
But I honestly don't think Amy Adams is getting enough credit for just how fun she is as the
never does
role.
Amy Adams never gets enough credit for all the cool, good stuff that she does.
I don't know. She really, really shines in the evil stepmother moments when she does get to have fun with the concept.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have Strange World, which you have not seen, right?
I have not seen it, no.
Okay, I honestly, here's the thing with Strange World.
I just feel like the internet is honestly, people are kind of turning around on it a little bit, but like when it first came out, the whole discourse was like, oh my God, it's a gigantic flop, which means it's a bad movie. Or at least the lines were getting blurred, Dragon, where everyone just wanted to talk about the flop side of things and nobody wanted to talk about the movie itself. You know what else was a flop?
Treasure Planet.
Well, I was going to say Pinocchio, Fantasia, Alice in Wonderland, fucking Treasure Planet, Atlantis. I mean, I could go on. Sleeping Beauty. A lot of Disney movies were flops. A lot of them. Some classics. I'm not saying that Strange World is a classic. I'm just saying that if box office was the only metric we used to judge movies, man, then stuff like that would not be classics. I think Strange World is a perfectly good movie. I think you will enjoy it once you see it. I really like the sci-fi premise. I think there is one twist in particular that I won't give away that really kind of brings things together and makes things even more heady, and it actually really works narratively. I will say that the whole with the the whole idea of the cross-generational, like the three generations of the clade men, which is pretty much the narrative driving force of the film. What I like about that is it gets to explore the character that the internet is fucking losing their minds over in a bad way. And goddamn, I hate society. Why can we never have good things? Of Ethan, where Dragon Ethan is legitimately, if we were to put a pin in like the first gay Disney character that I actually think, makes an impact on the plot, like, legitimately you can't cut him out of the movie. This would be a good starting point. It's a good starting point. I don't think his character is overly politicized at all. I think people are making way too much of a big deal out of it. And what I like about the character and what I like about how they wrote him is that him being gay is pretty much used as kind of like the, the cross-generational difference. And that is the kind of thing that I think is smart, and I think Disney can work with when it comes to, it's not the fact that he's gay that's like a defining character trait. It's more of the fact that he's different from his father, and his father is different from the grandfather, and the whole movie kind of explores those themes. And I think it works really well. I think the creature designs in this movie are really cool. I think it has some solid world building. The side characters in this movie, I'm going to be honest with you, they kind of suck. They kind of drag this movie down a little bit. I have a little bit of a crush on Jake Gyllenhaal, his character's wife. But other than that, yeah, there's not a lot of personality there. The Lucy Liu character is basically just an Awkwafina character. Like, she pretty much plays it like an Awkwafina character. So the movie's not perfect by any means. I definitely don't think it's as good as an Atlantis or a Treasure Planet, but I don't think it's terrible either. I'd say it would be a solid 7 out of 10. It's far from the best thing that Disney's ever done, but it's far from the worst thing either. It'd probably be solidly like in my 40s range if I were to, put it in the rankings overall, So a little bit mid, but I don't necessarily think that mid is a terrible thing. All right. Anyways.
All right. All right. So let's talk about Enola Holmes 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you never checked out the Enola Holmes thing, did you?
Yeah, I don't have much interest in it, honestly.
I mean, honestly, Tiki, it's kind of the similar sales pitch I give to you for the original one, where it feels very kind of in the Nickelodeon movies era. It's kind of a young adult crowd. It's based on I believe like a young YA series. I
and
think
you're pitching this to a 31-year-old man.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I know I have nostalgia for that era, Dragon, but it's just not necessarily something I want to spend my time watching now.
Anyway. Point being, it does have kind of a nostalgic vibe about it, but beyond that, Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill, they're a lot of fun. Of course, Henry Cavill, he plays Sherlock Holmes, and you have a sister this time around after she's been established in the first movie, and she's trying to kind of step out of the shadow of Sherlock Holmes, starting her own detective business, ends up on a case. I mean, the cool thing this time around is that we get to visit a little bit more of kind of the classic Sherlock Holmes stuff. Like she kind of finds her brother drunk at a bar while he's undercover one day, and she takes him to the 221 Baker Street, and we bring in Moriarty this time around.
Oh, nice.
Which, admittedly, look, it's for the Enola Holmes. For Enola Holmes, I think it's a decent take on Moriarty. It's more about the unveiling and the mystery of Moriarty, which usually you do in the initial Moriarty story. But let's be honest, it's no BBC Sherlock's Moriarty, and it's no Robert Downey Jr. No Guy Ritchie Game of Shadows Moriarty. Mm-hmm. So you know what you're getting coming into this. Again, it's more like it's a kind of a cute family, kind of all ages affair. That's really cute seeing Enola kind of fall for this boy that she saved in the first movie who's back. And, that's cute. That's all you really say. Enola Holmes 2 is cute.
Fair enough.
It's nostalgic for that kind of that YA Nickelodeon original movie, TV movie era. And, it's cute.
Well, you know what movie is decidedly uncute, Dragon?
Tiki, what movie is decidedly uncute?
The Menu.
The Menu.
So this movie honestly kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I really didn't care for it. I think it has some fun commentary on like elitist foodie culture, which, as you know, Dragon, I am something of a foodie myself, so I can kind of relate to it.
Get out.
I feel like Nicholas Hoult for me was the standout performance here, because he is basically kind of like Dragon. He is basically me. Because he's the guy who's like taking it way too seriously and fanboying out. The whole premise of it is that, of course, it stars Ralph Fiennes, who was also the other big draw. And Ralph Fiennes is basically this Gordon Ramsay style celebrity chef, known as a major hard ass, and he runs this this very exclusive dining experience on a private island. And it's one of those things, where it's like, I don't know, probably something in the range like upwards of $10,000 for a single person to dine at this table. And the whole idea is that they take you out on the boat to the private island, and the chef kind of gives you this whole crazy 8-course meal. And Dragon, the whole thing with this is that the chef has some sort of revenge plot going on, and the courses, the movie does it's structured like a menu, right? So it's like you have like each section of the movie is a course, and the courses are meant to be like kind of like escalating as far as the tension, and like, oh, this is getting kind of more and more messed up. But honestly, none of them are really that shocking or crazy or anything like that. They're all just kind of like, oh, like I think probably the funniest one is that they just had like various they put various selections of olive oils, like flavors of olive oils, and pass them around, and the whole joke is that these foodies would would literally eat up anything and just be all snobbish, like, oh yes, I can feel the flavors and the aroma of that. Very nice, very nice. And the joke with that is that Nicholas Hoult is the only one who like really gets into it, and he falls like hook, line, and sinker for it. But this movie, like, honestly, it has no bite to it. Like, at a certain point, the movie kind of like spends 15 minutes doing this weird kind of most dangerous game, sort of like, all right, all the men, my staff are gonna fucking hunt you down in the forest of the island. And we spend like 10 minutes on this whole thing, and it literally results in nothing. Like nobody gets shot or anything. It's pointless. And then like, without giving anything away, the ending is very much like well, that escalated quickly. Yeah, I don't know, Dragon. This movie's a bit of a mess for me. I know other people liked it. Ralph Fiennes is very good in it. Like, he does have a very good kind of like intense stare. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's all very much like him kind of looming in the background in the kitchen as the people are eating the courses. But yeah, just narratively, man, this movie is a mess. It really was for me. I really did not care for it.
Yeah, I tell you, man, I saw the poster look kind of enticing for the menu. I'm seeing like Ralph Fiennes, like, oh man, I mean,
it does look enticing, right?
It looks enticing, but I knew in my guts, like, no, it's the movie called The Menu. It's just not really. Someone's like baiting me here, and I don't want to take that bait. It's tantalizing and tasty as it looks.
I mean, I'll say this, Drake, if you were worried about it being like a horror movie of any kind, like, with gore or anything like that you don't like, it's really not. It's more of a satire than anything. So honestly, you might like it more than I did.
I will say this, Tiki. All this talk about like the framing device with like the multi-course meal. It does remind me of this comic. I wish you would read at some point. Tom King did this issue of Batman where essentially they're using Wayne Manor as like kind of like a sit down, almost like a mob sit down. Like you have like the Penguin, the Riddler, and the Joker.
Uh-huh.
And essentially, it's all framed around like this intense conversation going on while they're having like a multi-course meal. It's like a very fancy dinner.
Dragon, honestly, I think with the framing device, this might be one of those things where it honestly might be more up your alley than it is mine, honestly. So I don't know. Like, it is a thing where if it ever did come to Netflix or something, I would recommend you give it a shot just because, Ray Fiennes is very good and, like, there's enough in there to make it worth a watch. It just didn't really land with me personally. So.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. That brings us to, is that black enough for you?
I don't know.
Well, let me tell you. So yeah, no, so in all seriousness, is that black enough for you? This is a documentary on. I remember kind of trying to toss this your way, and you didn't quite catch the ball. This is a documentary on the evolution of black film by a black, very notable black film historian, Elvis Mitchell. This guy, I remember Elvis Mitchell every time he pops up in like documentaries on film and stuff. He's the guy with like I don't know if you remember this guy visually. He's like the guy with the long gray dreadlocks.
Yeah, I could kind of picture him. Yeah.
Yeah, Mitchell, he's really cool, and he's always kind of intrigued me, and he's very insightful. This is a very personal documentary for him. Like, kind of relates it to a little bit of his real life, like he's a kid going to the movies and just kind of seeing himself represented on film, and then seeing his grandmother kind of like it was either his aunt or his grandmother. I think it was his grandmother who would like have like again also be able to kind of track the progression of representation on film. So that's really cool, and there's a real good personal touch here. And, we cover like all the, honestly, if I recall, I could be wrong here. I think we either skim over or it's very light on the Jordan Peele, oddly enough. It gets into the roots of everything else in black film. Like we cover Birth of a Nation and, the importance
that is
of
really
Jordan.
Weird that it's light on Jordan Peele. You would think that the rise of Jordan Peele would be like one of the main talking points.
Because I'm sure it's mentioned, but because it'd be insane if it wasn't mentioned at all. But to the point where I can't recall it, T. I mean, it was not major.
I mean, Get Out was like a freaking like water moment, man.
That's what I mean. So based on that, it feels like it's probably very minimal. I don't think I missed something that big. I mean, I was waiting in the movie, like, man, I wonder when it was getting to the Jordan Peele thing. It was getting so close to the end, like, man, I don't think we're gonna get to that Jordan Peele thing. Which is kind of weird. But yeah, it's. But I'd recommend looking, especially this thing is really great for film fans. This is definitely worth looking into. It's really good.
Even ties me a little bit with The Cell. I might think of it. All right. Okay, well, I will never, ever, ever convince you to watch this movie as much as I liked it. Bones and all.
Bones and all.
Do you know the basic premise of this, Dragon?
All I've known is what there's that random out of left field clip you sent me of Mark Rylance with the kid in bed. It's Mark Rylance being creepy in bed with an underage person.
Oh my god, Mark Rylance is fucking terrifying in this movie, dude. Oh my god. Yeah, this is a cannibal love story.
Okay.
It's like Twilight, but with cannibals.
Are they both cannibals or just one of them's cannibal? Okay.
They're both cannibals.
So this basically is Jeffrey Dahmer's wet dream is what you're telling me.
I mean, honestly, yeah, kind of. Okay. Dragon, I love this movie. I really do. As bombastic as that premise is, first of all, you know what's weird about it? The premise is... Okay, it's directed by the guy who did Call Me By Your Name, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you like 10 seconds to think about why that is funny. Think about who is in Call Me By Your Name.
I'm aware who's in... I know.
Okay, so you know why that is funny.
Yeah. At the very... Was that ever substantiated? That can't be possibly been substantiated.
Dragon, I don't know. I mean, it's through multiple people, so I don't know.
I mean, still, it's
just weird. Army Hammer, and then the next movie the guy makes is a cannibal love story. I don't know.
It'd be hysterical. It's a terrible joke.
Oh,
You know that you don't have like you never got to the season of Kirby, but you know in general you have like those delis or celebrity delis or diners or something that has like the sandwiches named after celebrities and everything.
Yes.
The Army Hamner sandwich.
Oh my god.
And no one would order it just out of sheer fear.
All right. Anyways.
Yeah.
So what I dig about this movie, Dragon, is that this movie goes hard into the, like, it feels very realistic as far as you can tell Taylor Russell is the main is the lead in this movie. She was also the lead in the Escape Room movies, so she's a very good up and coming actress herself. And of course Timothy Chalamet, Willy Wonka himself, is the co-lead.
Well, that's yet to be shown, my friend.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I'm just saying he's the next in line. So what I really dig about both of the characters, Dragon, is that is off the wall of a concept and is like somehow they do a very good job, a really damn good job in this screenplay of humanizing the concept, of making it something that is absolutely like, you know, a horrifying urge that the characters know is terrible and know makes them a monster, and they're fighting against it and they want to maintain their humanity, but they know that there's that part of them that can never be. It really made me feel some shit. It really, honestly, it is a deep fucking movie in that regard. And Mark Rylance, oh Jesus Christ, Mark Rylance plays basically a guy who tries to take the Taylor Russell character under her wing, and let's just say when she refuses, he does not take it well, Dragon. He does not take it well at all, and it's terrifying, and it's legitimately unsettling, and oh man, I mean, Mark Rylance might be the strongest supporting actor performance I've seen this year. I'll put it that, like, it was. I have never seen Mark Rylance like that. The BFG, man, it's the BFG. It's the big friendly giant. But anyways, you know who else was a standout, Dragon?
Who?
Our boy Stuborg.
Oh yeah, Strobarg, yeah.
Strobarg, yeah. He pops up for one scene and he freaking almost steals the whole movie. That's all I'll say about it. It's a very memorable one scene role. Yeah, I don't know. This is very much a niche movie. It is not going to appeal to everyone. I would not recommend this movie to everyone. I would only recommend it to people who I knew would be down for a very disturbing yet thoughtful character study. But man, if it's something that you think you could stomach, I don't know. It kind of blew me away a little bit. Yeah.
All right. Okay, let me tell. Okay, so the next two that I'm going to mention, I'm going to have to keep a little vague because we're going to be talking about them in depth coming up on Seasonal Shenanigans. So let me tell you about Spirited. So Spirited is basically there's this movie that is advertised pretty much for the duration of this year on Apple TV Plus.
Mm-hmm.
They were advertising the heck out of this thing. They were very, very anticipatory over this. It was going to be like their big movie this year. And I tell you, man, I was kind of raising my eyebrow because, I mean, it's a Ryan Reynolds movie. It's got Will Ferrell in. I'm thinking they're very much Apple TV Plus's big thing is they advertise movies on stars. Like that's not on the network stars. So they advertise it based upon their stars. Like it's all about the
goes all the way back to fucking Greyhound. Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's Apple TV Plus's big gimme is like, look at who we got in this thing. We're gonna dump a whole.
I mean, even their big hit, The Newsroom, was pretty much that.
That's what I'm saying. They basically recycle stars, but again, who doesn't like a little recycling now and again? So this again stars Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. Essentially, it's kind of an irreverent version of A Christmas Carol, and I tell you, man, it was very worth it. I really don't.
I'm definitely looking forward to sitting down and watching this, Dragon. It definitely seems like a fun time.
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will tell you this: I really like this thing.
Feels like a throwback to like the classic era of like big, broad Will Ferrell concept comedies.
Yeah. I highly recommend it, and we'll be watching it again very soon. Yeah, Ryan was just killing it with his selection of projects lately. I mean, between the Adam Project and Free Guy, and it's going great for him.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay, next up is The Wonder. I saw this movie for one reason and one reason only, and that is Florence Pugh.
I wonder.
Yeah. And honestly, Dragon, so basic premise is it's set in I think England, like Scotland or something. I'm not sure. One of the European countries, UK. Said the United Kingdom during the famine. And so the idea is a lot of people are dying off due to hunger and starvation. And Florence Pugh is a nun who is sent to investigate a family who is claiming that their daughter has not eaten anything for 4 months and has survived. And it's like some sort of miracle. And the whole conflict is that the church and the townspeople are pissed because they think that the family is like smuggling food and hiding food. And the church is pissed because they think it's the whole idea is that everyone is convinced that the family is like basically just sneaking food to her in her sleep. Like, and Florence Pugh can tell that the girl is the girl believes it, but she's skeptical of the family. And that's the whole dynamic. And if that sounds boring, it's because it kind of is. It's really not that interesting. And honestly, Dragon, as much as I love Florence Pugh, this is about the closest that she's come to giving a boring performance. She usually just leaps off the screen for me. She's really, you know me, I'm one of the biggest fanboys when it comes to her. But I don't know, I'm not saying this is a bad performance by any means, but it just did not have that same sort of magnetic energy. It literally felt like it was kind of a paycheck movie for her in some regards. Like, she was kind of just putting on a British accent, and that was it. So, yeah, not the strongest for me.
Okay.
And very boring, very slow paced. It was honestly kind of a struggle to get through.
So basically, less pew pew, more pu.
Kinda, yeah.
Right. Okay, let me tell you about A Christmas Story Christmas.
Yeah, this one you've been glowing about it, but man, I don't know. Christmas Story 2 and A Christmas Story Live.
Yeah.
2 terrible Christmas Story products, Dragon.
I'm well aware. So this thing, I saw the trailer for when I said this thing was announced, I was kind of in shock of like, they can't possibly be thinking this is again.
It literally feels like as if they made a movie out of the E.T. Christmas commercial, Dragon. That's what this feels like.
It does. I know. The premise, you see that when I watched that trailer, I was half and half because I thought, well, they actually got the real kid, and he's involved in this. It's Peter Billingsley. He's actually, people don't know this, he's actually a really good producer. So you have Peter Billingsley coming back. He's playing the role, and seemingly, they have like all his friends and everything coming back, and it just on one side you have that, on the other side I'm seeing some gags in the trailer I was a little worried about, like, oh man, I don't know about this. This could basically as interest. It's like it's enough to it's dangerous enough that it kind of hooks you, but also it could fail spectacularly. And we've seen nothing but failures every time we've revisited directly A Christmas Story. There was a sequel no one talks about that was way back in the day called It Runs in the Family, based on a different.
That. Yeah.
That's good, actually. It's no Christmas Story, but it's another Gene Shepard book. It's like the natural sequel to A Christmas Story. It takes
kind of
place
like the
during
American Graffiti story, or the American Graffiti sequel. Like, it exists. No one ever talks about it. It's a decent movie, nowhere near as good as the original.
Essentially, yeah. Where It Runs in the Family was like, what happens to Ralphie in the summer? That's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally all it is. Anyway, so better than it has any. This is better than it has any reason to be. It's Billingsley. He's great. The movie itself, it's not perfect, but is very watchable. It's a nice celebration of A Christmas Story. I think they treated it with the proper reverence that the other revisits on Christmas Story were severely lacking. Those are pure cash-ins. This feels like, okay, we're actually we're actually saying something kind of nice about A Christmas Story that is not just let's just do the same thing again, but we're definitely in that familiar world again. So it's doing a lot right, not everything right, but it's doing a lot right. So this is a very pleasant surprise in terms of this could have gone very south. It could have been, well, HBO Max is they poured kerosene on the lamp. They've done it. They did not.
Okay. Nice. All right. The Banshees of Inisherin. Yeah, this is a Michael McDonough movie, and he did 3 Billboards was his last movie, but he's also done In Bruges and also 7 Psychopaths. Pretty popular director. And for me, this was by far my favorite movie that he's done so far. This really landed hard for me. Not the least of which because I feel like this is kind of what I love about movies, where it's a small scale premise that gets elevated into like a very cinematic level. So basic elevator pitch, Dragon, is that Colin Farrell is a simple, humble goat farmer. That is his lot in life. He is a goat farmer. Meanwhile, his best friend, who is played by Brendan Gleeson, who is he's most popularly known as Mad-Eye Moody in the Harry Potter films, among other things.
Yep.
And Brendan Gleeson, he is a composer, and he's very much kind of like one of those people where life has passed him by. He wishes he was more successful than he is. He feels kind of trapped in life. And him and Colin Farrell have been friends for as long as they can remember. But the movie starts off with Brendan Gleeson basically saying, like, you drag me down. You are a simple man, and I don't want, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. It's literally a friend breakup movie. That's all this movie is. And yet somehow it's incredibly compelling. I feel like the pace of this movie in particular just really gets it, because every scene, it goes from like, the first scene where it just kind of like establishes the conflict, and you're like, okay, like, the performances are really good. Colin Farrell, I will say this is the best Colin Farrell performance I've ever seen, and I'm not saying that lightly. I feel like Colin Farrell is both hilarious and heartbreaking at the same time in this movie. He's incredibly sympathetic, but he's also, his character by its very nature is dim-witted and kind of slow and simple, so there's a lot of comedic moments as well. You know who else really shines in this movie?
Who?
Carrie Condon.
Hey!
Yeah! Dragon, she almost steals the film. I swear to God, she's so good. She's so good.
She is good.
She plays Colin Farrell's sister. Oh my God. She has my favorite line in the whole movie, which is very early on, where she kind of goes to Brendan Gleeson, kind of confronts him, like, why aren't you talking with my brother? And Brendan Gleeson's like, I don't know, he's just boring. And she's like, boring? You're both fucking boring. Just the delivery. You're both fucking boring. Really commands the screen. Barry Keoghan. I love me some Barry Keoghan. This is the best. Like, Dragon, he plays essentially Barry Keoghan's role. It's a very clever role where he plays the village idiot, like the town drunk. And he kind of becomes the only person who will hang around with Colin Farrell. And his arc is that Colin Farrell suddenly finds that he is even lower on the town social hierarchy than he is. And it's like fucking horrifying to him. There's so many great little things in this movie. The fact that it takes place on an island, Dragon, as you know, I do have a big thing for, I don't know what it is. It's one of those things that's, it just makes the film feel more isolated. It makes everything just kind of like vibe a little bit more. I don't know. This film is very rich. The cinematography is just freaking drop dead gorgeous. Like, honestly, if there's any film this year for me that would rival Nope as far as cinematography goes, it would definitely be this one. This is my favorite film of 2022 so far. I will go as far as to say that I am pretty much raving about this film. I think this film is going to be, I think it kind of sums up sort of like the bittersweet point that we're at right now, where there's a lot of tension and we're trying to trying to find the comedy in it. I don't know. Like, to me, it really sums up a lot of. I'm really rooting for it for Best Picture because I think it's got a lot to say, and it's a very entertaining film in seeing it. All right.
All right, let me tell you about a documentary, Mickey, the story of a mouse.
What you got to sell me on this one, Dragon, is just like, is there stuff in it that we don't actually already know?
Well, I mean, okay, so there is one thing. I don't know if you've seen it or not. I don't know how released it really was because it was news to me, but I don't know. Maybe it was something that just kind of went past the radar for me. So it was a Mickey Mouse documentary. You probably guess. Because Mickey, hit the milestone recently. Is that did Mickey hit that? Did it hit the 90-year mark, or is it just close to 100? Like, where are we on Mickey?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
Because we know Pluto hit 90 recently, right?
Well, if Pluto hit 90, then Mickey would have to be 92. I mean,
That's the thing, right? Wait, are you saying 92 or just 90 as well?
90.
Okay. Okay, regardless, point being, this documentary Mickey Mouse, given he's probably approached some milestone, and basically for the said anniversary.
Willie was 1928, so yeah, we're approaching 90.
Okay. Anyway, so Eric Goldberg, beloved Eric Goldberg, he's doing this short for the Mickey Mouse anniversary, in which it's called Mickey in a Minute, in which basically it's him working on this short and basically glowing over like why this short matters to him and why he's doing it. And basically, Eric Goldberg making this short film is the framing device of this documentary, which basically the short film is kind of a little kind of like Easter egg, kind of like, oh man, look at all the stuff Mickey's been in, kind of building to Steamboat Willie.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it covers the many eras of Mickey Mouse. I will admit, again, this either goes by like that or they didn't cover it all. Oh, we talk about all sorts of Mickey Mouse stuff. We do not talk about House of Mouse, which baffles me. And it really just that I'm blaming that on kind of some Disney Plus stuff. Like, for some reason we still don't have House of Mouse on there, right?
Nope, we don't.
I call shenanigans on that one. I'm saying someone's
okay. So you're saying this is more about the evolution of the character as opposed to the origins of the character.
I mean, they cover the origins, but it's more about the.
Because that to me is a little bit more interesting. I got to admit, because if it was just another origin thing, then I'd be a little bit more like, I pretty much know everything.
It's more about the evolution. Like, they're talking about like the evolutions of Mickey, and then obviously the new Mickey shorts. They focus more on that than they do like something. Again, House of Mouse kind of gets glazed. They really do very much talk about the revitalization with the shorts that you really liked. So they kind of talk about that, and they kind of talk a little bit about the. Here's the thing. This shocks me. Okay. We're gonna pay little to no attention to House of Mouse, but we are gonna do instead is we're gonna show a clip from the SNL gag. You remember the SNL gag you showed me?
Oh, of course, the Saturday TV Funhouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're gonna show that, but we're not gonna show House of Mouse.
That was the real version. He only showed at parties.
Exactly. So they do talk about some of the iffy aspects of Mickey Mouse, which is interesting. Like the dangers of. Honestly, I think the most fascinating part of this documentary is where they kind of talk about the dangers of Mickey becoming a corporate mascot, which I found really interesting.
Oh wow!
I mean, they don't spend a lot of time on. Well, they do cover in a way of it's kind of like them acknowledging it. Yeah, we kind of had to do some not so nice stuff when Mickey became kind of bigger than God. Essentially, we kind of had to he mattered.
So honestly, me into this one. I think I have to check it out.
I'll tell you, man. Watching this, I would really be down for more of like the Fab Five getting documentaries like this for milestones. Just like it's like at the very least Goofy and Donald. Very least Goofy. I really want Goofy.
Donald, absolutely. I think Donald.
I think the public should know.
The most interesting history out of all of them.
And that's true, but Goofy would give us the thing that I think Goofy has. It's debatable, Tiki. One could say. Between Goofy and Donald, who do you think has more kind of nostalgia built in the bank? Because obviously Donald has gone further because of all the DuckTales and everything and such. But by the same token, Goofy, though, might have kind of a deeper well with the Goofy movie.
I'm just saying with Donald, there's so much to go over just with the wartime stuff by itself. Like
that's the thing. And they cover that. They cover
like a lot of rich history.
They cover a large part of Donald's origin is kind of covered in this Mickey documentary, and the wartime stuff is is factored in as well a little bit.
Nice.
So that's yeah. So I don't know. The point is, I would love to see more of the Fab Five just kind of worked in and stuff like this. Is really good.
All right. Okay, and finally, Del Toro's Pinocchio. This movie is unhinged.
I'm really. So I'm going to be watching this next month, and I'm festering over like, oh man, I got to see it. You want to see
Dragon,
it?
it is bizarre.
I'd expect nothing less from Del Toro's take on
Yeah,
Pinocchio.
it's honestly so unhinged that I'm honestly like, it's to the point where, for me personally, I think I respect it a lot more than I actively enjoyed watching it, if that makes sense.
Really?
Where the movie pulls some really big swings. I will say that I think Act One was definitely the strongest act. I don't want to give away too much because there is honestly some kind of spoilery stuff that happens like literally right at the get-go that like I don't necessarily want to give away for you because it's pretty impactful. But let's just say there's some origin story stuff with Geppetto. Like this is like Geppetto, like Pinocchio's origin is literally a Frankenstein's monster creation. Very appropriate for Del Toro.
Which Del Toro loves Frankenstein and also loves Pinocchio, so this is great.
I will say my biggest mixed element of this movie is that Pinocchio is absolutely an annoying little shit in this movie. He is a horror in this movie. And I am mixed on that because it is very book accurate, but by the same token, it's like, okay, it's a little too much, man. It's legitimately grating at a certain point. I don't know. Like he is just like the whole thing of it is that they play it where it's as realistic to like how would it's kind of like that Toy Story Forky kind of logic where it's like how would an inanimate object actually like realistically react to suddenly being alive? And in this situation, like it's pure abject horror and confusion, and it's weird. It's so fucking weird. I don't know. To me, another thing that I'm kind of mixed on, Dragon, is that this movie has some very over the top fascist overtones to it. You know, where they make the actual setting fascist Italy during World War II.
Basically, the Mussolini years.
Right, which I think is really interesting, but at the same time, I feel like almost kind of muddies things a little bit. Like, I don't know, it kind of veers into like obviously it's political. It's weird. Like this is very much Del Toro's vision, and I very much respect it for that. It's got some pacing issues. It's definitely got some tone issues. I mean, you know me, Dragon. I'm not big on the on the tone mix thing where there is some very broad comedy here. There's also some like deathly grim sequences here as well. I don't know. Ewan McGregor as the cricket is delightful. He has this running gag where he always tries to start a song and always gets literally like horrifically hurt in the process of trying to start singing. The songs themselves in this movie are just wholly unmemorable, and I honestly really wish it wasn't a musical at all. There's only a few of them, but they're just not good.
Huh.
So yeah, I wish I was more positive on this movie. Honestly, I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm pretty sure I like Wendell and Wild a little more. So
okay.
But I mean, I'm in the minority though. A lot of people freaking love this movie. So I don't know. I'm curious how you're gonna feel because honestly, I think some of the stuff that rubbed me the wrong way about this movie might I don't know. I'm very much gonna be curious about how you feel about this.
I guess we'll find out in a few days.
Indeed.
Well, more like a month. You know what I mean? We'll find out.
No, well, it's coming like I think this Friday, Dragon.
Well, I know it's this Friday. I'm saying by the time we'll talk about on Memoirs.
Oh, right. By the time we talk about it, yeah.
That's what I meant. But yeah, I mean, I'll know how I feel about it in a few days.
All
right.
And that's it. Okay. So let's transition over to TV. All right, let's get
Click.
it out of the way because we've already talked about it. Andor, I love it. You're a little bit more mixed on it.
I mean, look, it's a refreshing take on Star Wars that the franchise needs, but I don't know, between the release and the number of episodes, I think it had some pacing and momentum problems, but it's that I think hurts it, at least for me.
So it's
But
funny because I actually just started watching it again with my dad, and we're kind of just taking it like episode by episode, night by night. And yeah, holy crap. That first episode, man, I don't blame anyone for thinking that first episode is like what even is this? This is super slow. Like
yeah.
it's intriguing, but it's like there's nothing much going on. I very much think it's a slow burn.
Yeah, and as I'm saying, again, some of our plot lines that are not like directly or at least at the very least directly or adjacent, they're again kind of spin our wheels a little bit in regards to the pacing issues. But on the flip side, though, again, Andy Serkis in the prison section
Oh
are
my god.
absolutely the highlight and the heist, of course. So
I
there's a
think the
lot of good
prison stuff in this show is easily the best Disney Star Wars content ever, as far as I'm concerned. Just if you break up that whole arc.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And again, I think overall this thing is very in tandem in a good way with the Rebels show, which again,
Luthen.
What?
Luthen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yes. Luthen, of course, is
Huge
great.
highlight. Easily now one of my new favorite Star Wars characters. Like just jumped right up into the upper echelon of my favorites. It just in this one season.
Yeah. Well, we know why Selvig wasn't directly in Thor: Love and Thunder. He's busy doing this.
Oh God! Right? No, that's the thing. I mean, Jesus Christ! Talk about a role that is much, much, much better for him than that. I mean, God, I always thought that Selvig was just a thankless role for him.
I mean, I like Selvig, and I like that we put him in Avengers.
Selvig he's a fun character, but I'm just saying, like, I always almost felt embarrassed for Skarsgård with some of the shit they were having him do.
Well, again, basically, it was embarrassing what we did with him in Thor: The Dark World. That was like we're having run around.
Yeah.
Like, anyway. Regardless, but that's the thing. I think overall, I love the 3.5 setting. So like this and Rebels are very much kind of in tandem with each other for that sort of thing. So that's good.
Uh-huh. All right.
Speaking of Star Wars, let me tell you about Star Wars.
So you like Star Wars?
Hey, well, let me tell you about Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't get in. I think
you didn't get to the good stuff, though. That's your problem. You didn't get to the good stuff.
I'm just a little bit over the Jedi side of things. Like I said, I think that is my problem.
Well, regardless, I was very impressed by this. I love the premise. The idea of like it's very much kind of laid out in kind of a linear chronological style, but through two perspectives. You got a Jedi and you got her Sith with Ahsoka, and we check in with like 3 points in her arc. And then more interestingly, again, honestly, I get that. So starting off with Ahsoka, I get was probably not like the big banner one, but the one I really wish you got to, Tiki. The Dooku stuff was the best part of the whole thing.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
Like Dooku is the MVP because you get to see the dimension of why he did the things that he did, and he kind of retroactively made that character better in Star Wars. And again, basically you see Dooku is absolutely the proto Anakin Skywalker for the Emperor. That's very much what these 3 episodes that feature him are about, and there's a strong kind of connection and correlation with Qui-Gon Jinn. He's well showcased, I felt. But that's the thing. I would love more of this concept in terms of like how we frame this. Like, let's just take two sides of the coin. Let's just see them kind of placed in Star Wars and kind of give them like a little mini 3-episode arc each. I like that style. I like that. So I'm down for more Tales of the Jedi. This was good.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so Inside Man. Yeah.
Yes, we both saw this.
I'm so mixed on this show. I really, really like the David Tennant stuff, although I think it can get a little bit campy with whole like, I'm the fucking Vecca.
I'm a Vecca.
Vecca, yes, that's what Vecca. And I like the Tucci stuff. Just literally feels like a Blacklist spinoff. That's exactly what it feels like.
Well, it's kind of like anti-hero monk, kind of, but
I
sure.
guess.
Well, I bring that up because Tucci, Tucci was in an episode of Monk in which he was an actor who was going method to play Adrian Monk, so he was literally copying Tony Shalhoub the whole episode, and it was hysterical. But sorry, back on point here.
It feels like two completely different shows that are tied together through the most ham-fisted and convoluted of ways, and that's my main problem with it.
So yeah, this was done by Stephen Moffat, the guy who did Sherlock, which I really liked. I love Sherlock. I was sold on this purely the Tucci premise alone before I even found out David Tennant was involved. Like, okay, so Tucci's like a death row crime consultant essentially, which already in itself is interesting, and I love Tucci. And of course, David Tennant's in there essentially as our bad guy, or at the very least our guy in a complex situation that's making him into the bad guy. Very interesting. I always love the idea of a man who has accepted his fate and wants the punishment, and he's all obsessed with moral worth. And I mean, I'll admit to you, you're right in that the 4 episodes in which I think the first half of our story, in which it pertains to how the Tucci stuff crosses over into the David Tennant stuff, is just it's not there enough to really count. You're right. That said,
And holy shit, that song every time that Tucci comes in is, oh my god, that was one of the most awkward. That was just such an awkward directing choice.
They did overplay it, yes, but still, what's working though? I mean, David Tennant as the vicar is just in this terrible misunderstanding in parallel to Tucci's knowing what we know about Tucci, the idea that okay, so he's in a situation similar to what put Tucci on death row. So that in itself, in premise, is great. Again, connecting him a little less so, but still, as David Tennant, he's given a really great performance of this man a man of the cloth in conflict over doing something really bad, in which it's not really his fault, but it's spun out of hand, and he's now making very, very questionable choices to protect his son and to protect kind of essentially a pedophile, which again is the moral quandary of it all here. I will admit that here's the issue I have with the show. Really, the reporter's life in the balance. Janie's likability, I felt, kind of compromised the teeth of that story a little bit for me. I wonder if you had that. Did you at a certain point kind of say, she really could have heard him out just a little bit more? Like,
yeah, I really was not. She was like kind of supposed to be the audience surrogate, I guess. I just was not compelled to her at all.
I honestly, it was just the fact of like, I mean, you'd think man of the cloth. You think if he says no, it's not that. Let me tell you what's going on. You think maybe you'd hear him out just a little bit more, even if you do have like cynical presumptions. And then I'm in a really weird place where I'm kind of rooting against her in that situation, but it's kind of that anti-hero thing. Where is that the show kind of making me sympathetic to the vicar, or is that? I think it's that they didn't do necessarily the job they were hoping to do with her, because I think she's played it too like, yeah, I'm turning them against each other. I'm all, I don't know, her angling them against each other felt a little like that's a little too sinister for a woman in her position right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you.
So that was for me, that was more the sticking point than the Tucci stuff itself. Because again, I was loving the Tucci stuff, but you're right in terms of how we mix the pot. Little off, but again, overall the story though we are telling though, and of course Dylan Baker being fantastic as well. There's a lot of good elements here. I liked a lot of this, and it's 4 episodes, not like a huge time crunch, time suck, I should say. It was I found it rather enjoyable.
Okay, all right. So we have Manifest season 4, part 1.
All right, so I've told you about Manifest before. Essentially, oddly how it timed out, this show was kind of Endgame before Endgame, but not before Infinity War. Oddly enough. Essentially, this is about.
It's kind of weird how that worked out.
So again, this is a little bit. There's some little bit of Endgame meets the leftovers here. Essentially, the premise is people go on a flight to Jamaica. They come back, but it's been 5 years, so they seemingly were written off as dead. But they thought like 5 hours had passed. And in reality, it was like 5 years. So and then basically the whole premise of the show is they're figuring out what the heck happened to them, and they have these callings, which are kind of like the whole question of the show. They're still, unfortunately, they wrote themselves into a corner where it seems like they were planning out a 5-year show, and they were canceled at season 3, but then Netflix brought them back for season 4, which thankfully they've split up into 2, so they kind of get their 5 years, and there is a time jump, so they can kind of accommodate for the 5-year thing, because there's like I don't want to bore you with all the semantics. Point being, we still don't know until the second half, I guess, what the deal is with how they came back. Is it a phenomena of science like multiverses or like pocket dimensions, or is it like actual religious stuff? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
So I mainly watched the show for Josh Dallas, who was from Once Upon a Time. He played, Prince Charming. Oh, David. I love Josh Dallas. He's great. I cast him as Andrew Stanton in the Pixar biopic. I love this guy. So yeah, I mean, he's the guy trying to get all the answers, and he's trying to. His son was sick in the first seasons, and can I get back into that a little bit here? Yeah, so this half a season, essentially, there's a time jump to see things have gotten really bad for the Josh Dallas character. His daughter has been kidnapped, his infant daughter, who was just recently born. So he's basically tracking her down for this half of the
So
season.
someone's going to kill his infant daughter?
No, even worse, Tiki. So this is the thing I'm kind of bifurcated on the season 4, part 1 here, because it's kind of the thing where there's a character you're supposed to hate, I think, but they try to make her sympathetic, which makes me think maybe that's not the case. In season 3, they introduced this character that I really hated, but it's this girl that they saved during a calling, who they then took into the house, and she essentially kidnapped the daughter. And she becomes kind of like a religious zealot who believes, like, we were all saved for reasons, and all these callings are for religious reasons. And this baby's like the Messiah and stuff like that.
Oh no!
So it's basically she makes a cult in this half season. And you know how I feel about cults.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but by the same token, though, I can't tell how much of that is just I hate this sort of thing, like I did in The Leftovers with cults and stuff, or how much of this is like, or how much of this is like, or how much of this is like, you're really rooting for someone to punch this little girl in the head because she's such a prick, she's for kidnapping this child and everything's like just deck her, someone deck her and steal the kid back because she's doing terrible things. Anyway, so it ends on very much cliffhanger in terms of bad things are happening, and you're really eager for the second half. So we're hopefully going to get answers to season 2, and all of this will not have, and bringing it back will not have been for nothing. So fingers crossed.
Oakley dokley. All right, so Dragon, I just have one question.
Yes.
Pepsi, where's my jet?
I'm so glad you asked.
Where is it? Where is it? Come on.
Well, it's this little model. It's on the shelf.
It's like the new dude, where's my car?
Essentially, yes. Yes, I thought this was a great doc, the old documentary series they put on.
I honestly liked this better than McMillions, because I think McMillions went a little bit more into the, like, Dragon, at a certain point with McMillions, for me, it kind of got a little bit bogged down with math and, and kind of like the minutia of it all. But this, I feel like, had a good balance of, it did get pretty technical with how some of the stuff was executed, but I think above all else, the characters in this thing, lack of a better word, characters, were all very compelling. I especially liked the kind of the three-way love, like friendship triangle that kind of develops throughout this.
Yeah, between kind of our helpful guy and the shady lawyer.
Todd Hoffman, in particular, Dragon, just really, really magnetic personality.
He was the cancer survivor, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. That's the helpful guy is referring. Yes, him. Yeah, I mean, I tell you, man, I really love this thing. Of course, during the whole Coke Pepsi Pepsi conflict, the Pepsi's just so desperate they made a mistake in their ad campaign, which has led to this. Just I love this the whole conflict. This kid had a very earnest
whole of it all.
That's what fascinated me so much about it. I just love the fact that they missed the disclaimer and this happens. It's just, and this kid, I love the ultimate. This kid just has a very earnest desire. He wants the jet. That's all he wants. He doesn't want like a big payout or anything. He just wants the jet, and it leads to a very unfair court case. And it's just, I watched this not knowing the outcome, which I think is a great way to experience this. And plus, again, it could go either way, given like the locations of some of these interviews, which they
totally.
It's unclear. Like, wait a minute, well, look where he's at. Does this mean
like he's literally messing around with the jet right now?
Yeah, exactly. So again, the characters in quotes are interesting. My favorite aspect of this, Tiki, was I loved the. I love the creative department of Pepsi, who are like walking you through what this commercial was originally supposed to be, and then telling you basically all the mistakes the executives made in the making of this commercial.
Casting the wrong kid, and then the biggest one, like getting the amount wrong and everything, like doing all these mistakes that would have, in the long run, had they listened to the creative guys, they would have saved themselves all this trouble, but they didn't. They wanted to go for the young hotshot Top Gun kind of vibe.
I also really liked the kind of the, I don't know if you call it a framing device, but I like the the Coke versus
Oh
Pepsi.
yes, the Coke Pepsi. That was great. I love that.
Yeah, that was fun. It was basically like kind of a fun way to introduce all the interviews.
Yeah, it was pretty. And of course, all at the end they put the tally up there. It's great.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's a unique doc. I think it's a more unique documentary series that Netflix
I'm
needs more
honestly
of.
kind of surprised this isn't getting more attention than it is, because I think it'd be one of those. It's very easily digestible.
I mean, honestly, Tiki, when they do that carousel thing on Netflix, where they have like little, when you pause it and all this stuff comes up, I don't know. I think it's the most eye catching right now. And it's like Pepsi. Yeah, we all
No,
know Pepsi.
I definitely see it on Netflix. I'm just surprised people aren't really talking about it.
Yeah, Netflix needs to do more stuff like this because this kind of shakes up the true crime of it all. This is like
Oh,
an
absolutely,
interesting story.
yeah.
And you're right. I don't know if I have to rewatch McMillions to see if I like this more in McMillions. But the point being, we need stuff like a McMillions and like a Pepsi. We need to recognize what isn't just necessarily crime and death and glorifying serial killers debatably.
You know what I want? I want the definitive Beanie Babies documentary.
Well, don't we already have that?
We don't have a definitive one. We have some out there, but not really a definitive one.
Yeah, we need the tie story.
Mhm.
All right. Let me tell you about Blockbuster Season 1. No idea if this is going to get a Season 2 or not, but they kind of marked it. There's definitely room for a Season 2. This is a companion. This feels like a companion piece to the last Blockbuster documentary, which ironically is on Netflix, much like the series. When you think about it, it's really just kind of messed up when you think about it.
It really is just like it's literally Netflix dancing on a Blockbuster's grave.
Yeah, but oddly though, very lovingly nostalgic for Blockbuster though. So it's kind of a twofold thing where yeah, they are kind of stomping on the ashes, but they are saying really nice things about Blockbuster.
Dragon, they're doing a very nice, very thoughtful Macarena in tribute to the 90s, which is the era that Blockbuster dominated.
I suppose
That's what they're doing.
So the main standouts of this cast is mainly three people. You got Randall Park, who I love. You got JB Smoove, of course, Leon from Curb Your Enthusiasm. And Melissa Fumero, who is from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She's Amy Santiago in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so this is what she's going to next. Anyway, so I rather enjoyed this, man. It's not perfect. I mean, here's the...
Feels like it's a pretty good comfort watch if I ever need a comfort watch.
It's absolutely a comfort watch.
I'm honestly kind of saving it for a time where I need a comfort watch, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, Randall Park, he plays, as he tends to do, he plays a very endearing character who's not Jimmy Woo, but he's Timmy, which is kind of...
He's not Jimmy Woo, he's Timmy Woo.
Now, his last name's not Woo, but
I know.
It's adorable. It's the fact of like, oh, I realize it because the
Jimmy and Timmy.
I just think that's adorable.
That is kind of adorable, actually.
Anyway, so point being, you had the very likable, lovable Randall Park. Again, it's not a biopic like I think possibly I thought it might be, but essentially it's because the lady who runs the last Blockbuster is not in this.
Yeah, right. But if she was Dragon, you know that she would be played by character actress Margot Martindale.
Yep. Yeah. Point being, Randall Park here, he just plays this guy fighting the ultimate uphill battle, and you're rooting for him, and you know he's kind of doomed, and that's the thing. There's kind of like an element there. Honestly, the only issue I have with this show is it's kind of twofold. It's that I think the supporting cast will either make it or break it for it because it feels like they're very much in the shadow of the workplace comedy format we have with The Office in terms of like we need quirky.
Does it kind of have like that disjointed thing? I mean, I'm sure it's not nearly as bad.
It's not disjointed bad. I'm saying it feels like Diet Coke Office. It feels like Pepsi.
Okay.
So, but again, it's not. I don't know how you're going to feel about it. Maybe you like the supporting characters. I just felt they were like, okay.
I don't even really like The Office, so I don't know.
In general, the point they just feel like kind of supporting characters that are either going to make you laugh or they're not, but they're not really that important. So regardless, let's see. So all right. The other issue I have is that there is kind of a formula in place that does. I mean, after a while, again, some of the workplace formulas that they're there. Again, this is like feeds into a comfort watch sort of thing. Not reinventing the wheel, but again, you have like the Blockbuster element, which is new. It's a very unique location to have versus what we ordinarily have because we know the axe is looming. Where we have basically there's kind of like a will they won't they aspect at play here, unfortunately. But beyond that, it's kind of the thing of like, okay, we have an idea to boost sales at Blockbuster, to save the Blockbuster. Something makes it fail miserably, but there's a silver line. That's kind of the formula for the episode. That's kind of how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
honestly, with season 2, there is definitely kind of a cliffhanger at the end of this season. But season 2, if they are to do it, I think what I really want to see him do is like address the Netflix in the room. I want to see him address the Netflix in the room.
Yeah. So there's no stand-in for Netflix or anything. That's just not brought up in the first season.
So they acknowledge streaming. They had not said Netflix.
Okay.
So the point being, streaming is a thing. So we're not. This isn't the origin of. This is basically essentially the blockbuster that is the main blockbuster is literally the last blockbuster. So it's them at the first episode finding out, oh God, we're the only ones that are left.
Oh, okay.
So the Netflix thing has already happened, but I think we could acknowledge like maybe they're
Right.
acknowledging it, or maybe them making a play of like, hey, Netflix, why don't you try a new streaming service or an offshoot streaming service? Or basically, if they could kind of tackle the Netflix thing, perhaps. But the main thing I want to see, though, I think the end point of this show should be the Airbnb, because I've heard that I forget the Blockbuster's doing this, or at least one of the Blockbusters. I read this somewhere, like a Blockbuster converted into an Airbnb.
Really?
Now I'm not saying maybe not
That's
as the direct.
crazy.
Like if I'm a betting man, I think
As in like it's completely as. Oh man, I got to tell you, Dragon, that would be tempting. That would be tempting.
So that's the thing. So
like
honestly,
if they could recapture the smell and the vibe and everything.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, Tiki, for me, I feel if I'm a betting man, I'm saying the end. If I were plotting this, the end of the Blockbuster show would be we have a season in which we attempt the Airbnb thing, whether or not it works. The end point of Blockbuster is it's almost becomes like a landmark of sorts in which it's not going to get torn down, but it will purely be like a museum for nostalgia. So essentially, that's what the fate of Blockbuster would be. That's kind of how it exists now with the last Blockbuster. Essentially, it's just kind of like people are coming in for the novelty, but somehow it's keeping the lights on.
Sure.
All right.
Alrighty, so Zootopia Plus, this was a fun little show, Dragon. I am just kind of like, for me, I just wish that these Disney shows were a little bit more substantial as far as, I honestly feel like it would maybe play better if it was like a 1 hour special as opposed to individual shorts. I will tell you though, what I really do like about this approach is I really do dig the whole thing where everything in all these shorts is taking place concurrently with the movie. That is my favorite element of this.
Yeah, it's kind of a mid-cool sort of thing.
I think some of them work better than others. I think I honestly really like the first one with the train. I don't know. It was just really fun to see more of that train, and I thought the action was really on point. The animation is still really good. I think they go a little bit. I got to admit, I do think that the two things with the Real Housewives is there's some funny jokes in that one, but it's a little bit too over the top. And
I thought you were really going to like that one, by the way.
I like some of the gags, but I don't like some of the stuff. Just feels like it's a little bit too low hanging fruit. The Weasel musical is like some of it's a little off. I don't know.
I mean, tell me you didn't like Godfather of the Bride, though.
Well, that's clearly the best one, of course.
I know, right? Because you know why? Because it was Godfather Part 2.
No, I mean, like that is everybody's favorite, and for good reason. Like they probably could have made a whole short, like a whole movie just around that.
I just thought of a really dumb joke.
Oh Jesus!
When we do like our We Heart Mike thing.
Yes.
What if almost like a blooper? What if Mike Coulter walked in? Hey guys, wait, you're not Jonathan Banks.
Oh my God.
But you still like me though, don't you? Yeah, we do. Come on in.
Oh Jesus.
We also love this Mike. Anyway.
We like you, Mike, but we don't love you.
We really like you though.
But it's not like a Hey Arnold like you.
No, we don't want to make him feel self-conscious though.
Oh God.
Anyway. But
okay,
obviously that
ridiculous.
Okay, point being. The Godfather of the Bride was just a delightful kind of world building thing, and obviously doing some Godfather Part 2 stuff is wonderful. And also Idris Elba coming back too was great.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think the variety we got from doing it as shorts kind of necessitated. Like, we get more of a variety versus like doing like an hour special. I don't know. It would have been. I don't know.
I don't know, Dragon. I just like my thing with these is I really like all of them in concept. I just wish there was a little bit more meat on the bone. Like I feel pretty unanimously about all of them. Like Doug Days. I mean, Doug Days is kind of special just because of the Asner of it all.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It's just one of those things where even if these shorts were like 10 minutes and then 5 minutes of credits as opposed to like 5 minutes and then like what I mean. It just feels like that you're so in and out of the shorts so quickly. It's just hard for anything to really be too substantial in this format. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at it right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the Killing Fields, Dragon. So basically, I decided to watch this over Killer Sally just to kind of give us a little bit of a, kind of differentiate our list a little bit. And honestly, out of the two, it was probably the one I was more interested in. And yeah, I got to tell you, for a true crime thing, this does do a really good job. I think the best thing that this does is it encapsulates small town paranoia really, really well. So and also an interesting thing with the actual Texas Killing Fields, like the location, is that it's right next to Galveston, which is it's like Galveston Dragon is kind of like a tourist hub of Texas. Like, outside of I would say outside of like, obviously like the major cities like Austin and like Dallas, those kind of big landmark cities, San Antonio. Galveston is probably one of the big tourist hubs. And so for something this dark, because the whole idea is that, like there's a ton of murders that have gone down, a ton of bodies that have been dropped here, just very, very infamous spot. And it led to a lot of paranoia. Nobody knew if it was just one person doing it. Nobody, it could have been like a whole ring of serial killers. And that was kind of the compelling part, was that, the town was so, the whole community was so unsure of what was even going down. So as far as Netflix true crime goes, I thought it was pretty decent, pretty captivating. I've stuck it out. I liked it quite a bit. I don't think it's anything like mind blowing, but it got the job done. It was a decent watch. Pretty compelling stuff. Like I said, the true crime, or I'm sorry, the small town element, I think is probably the thing I like the most about it.
Okay. All right, let me tell you about Killer Sally.
Yeah.
Well, she killed him.
Spoilers.
No. This obviously is true crime doc series about two bodybuilders who fell in love and loved her very much, and they had two kids. But no, they well, that is true. They did have two kids. They got married, and Sally shot her abusive husband. So this thing, so she shot him, and then there was kind of a miscarriage of justice that happens. It's not a happy story, as you've gathered.
So basically, is the idea of, is it kind of like a legal loophole of like the self defense thing, and she got kind of, that's kind of what I'm taking it as, right? Like she probably shot him in self defense, and then the court did not rule it as self defense.
Yeah, there is basically, yeah. So it's a question of self defense.
Okay.
When you're the size of this woman, when is how is it self defense? That sort of thing,
I hear you.
Kind of. That's essentially, yeah. There is a question of self defense where it seems very there's a question, and honestly, essentially, it's that they kind of used she had done she basically had they used her. She did these muscle fetish videos, which they cover in the thing, and essentially that backfires in court. And it's kind of like a thing that they're using the kind of defamer character of like, yeah, right, look at this tough lady. She shot him in fear. So
right.
There's kind of skeezy stuff in regards to how that was.
Domestic abuse situations, though,
Yeah.
a lot of it is it's much more than just the physical violence part of it. A lot of it is like psychological. So
Which again, they also get into. But yeah, that's the interesting thing. It was just kind of like a miscarriage of justice for this lady. It's just kind of like she's in a really, really bad position. And honestly, seeing her like kind of break down when she realizes things are going south with her kids, it's heartbreaking.
It doesn't sound like something I'll be watching anytime soon. I got to admit.
No, it
sounds interesting, but also sounds pretty bleak.
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, let's see. I believe Wednesday's next, right?
Yeah.
I don't have the list in front of me. Yeah, Wednesday. Okay.
So you finished Wednesday.
Yeah. So Dragon, I was not too high on this after the first couple episodes, and it was going to be one that I just did not finish. But Jokers, he did kind of like recommend it. He said it got better, and I will agree, it did get better. I think the thing with this show that you have to kind of go in with is you have to go in with the expectation that there is definitely going to be kind of like a young adult sort of Riverdale sort of vibe to it a little bit, although I will say the writing is way better than that show, thankfully. But it does kind of like get mirrored in some of the young adult tropes of a high school show.
They didn't make Pugsley like a heartthrob or anything.
Oh God, no.
Thank goodness. Because that would have been like a betrayal of the character. No.
But and you also have to go in like the Adams themselves aren't really like, they're just kind of there in the first episode, and they pop up like here and there, but by and large they're not really a part of the cast, which is a shame, because I gotta tell you, man, Luis Guzman, he might not be he might not beat Raul Julia, but I think he is probably the most comics accurate Gomez we've ever had. I don't know, the brief time we do spend with him, I really loved him. I think Fred Armistead does a serviceable job. Catherine Zeta-Jones, word on the street is that she's going to get a bigger role in season 2. It's interesting because a lot of this kind of comes down to Wednesday is sort of struggling because she's in the shadow of her mother, because Nevermore Academy, which she gets sent to at the start of the series, because she gets expelled for putting piranhas in the pool of the swim team, which is a rather hilarious, grim way to start the show.
Huh.
As revenge for Pugsley, by the way, Pugsley getting beat up.
Okay.
So that's one of the elements they do keep, is her being, very protective of Pugsley.
Okay.
Jenny Ortega, there's a reason she is being very, very hyped up right now. I mean, she really does own the role, Dragon. I mean, it is one of those things where I would say, Christina Ricci is iconic, but I like Jenny Ortega might even have more layers to her performance, though. Because what I like about the character development here is that essentially what we're seeing is Wednesday Addams kind of struggling. She's struggling to stay out of Morticia's shadow, but at the same time, the more she kind of rebels against that, the more she realizes how similar she is to Morticia. And so there's this really interesting kind of inner conflict going on throughout the whole show. I will say that throughout all of Tim Burton's like post Sweeney Todd input, this has definitely been the strongest stuff so far. It's not perfect by any means. It's a little slow in spots. I think some of the supporting characters are okay. Some of them are a little grating. None of them are particularly memorable. But I do think if season 2 focuses more on the actual family side of things and the Morticia rivalry, I don't know. Like I see promise here. Like I didn't love it, but I definitely see the potential. Jenny Ortega as Wednesday is kind of the reason to watch. She absolutely like captures the character, very spot on interpretation. So overall, Dragon, I would recommend it. I definitely would. Just don't go in expecting the moon, But I thought it was very serviceable, and I am happy to see it getting so popular, because frankly, in this day and age, with all due respect to Marvel, anything that's not a superhero thing blowing up right now, I'm happy for. I'm just saying, diversity in media, diversity.
No,
in
no,
media.
you're right. Look, you're right. We need to
We
populate the
need more
pot.
than one type of story.
I get it. I get it. And I was saying, let's just say we need more of that instead of like, hey, Marvel,
All right, so Dead to Me season 3, Dragon. You know what show I think of when I always hear the title Dead to Me?
What show?
I think of Dead Like Me, which I believe is the HBO show that was kind of like a dark comedy starring the Grim Reaper.
Yeah. Okay, but seriously,
every time I hear the title, I always think it's like it's like something to do with that show. It's like a reboot of that show or something.
I still highly recommend this show to you. And now this is the last season, so it's completely done. So you can watch the whole show. I tell you, man, I love this show. This is again the final season, it ends just right. I felt it ended just right. It's not just one of those things where it's like I think Netflix, honestly, with the exception of House of Cards for obvious reasons, Netflix knows how to end their shows, man. Their original shows, even the shows they've again hopefully Manifest will follow this trend. Even the shows that they've kind of obtained, usually when they kind of bring a show back for cancellation, they give it a good ending. Look, Lucifer is a perfect ending.
Sure.
Not a perfect last season, but it has a great ending. So this is
Arrested Development probably is another thing where it's like, nah, that didn't really work out so well.
Well, I never saw that, but sure.
I never did either, but the reputation precedes it.
Okay. Anywho, so this is so Dead to Me has always been kind of akin to Breaking Bad season 1 and kind of Good Girls, where it's like one mess into another, kind of like cats in the bag, bags in the river. Yeah, and it's usually like each season. The show is very much again with the title like Dead to Me. I've kind of realized this now. The show's over. You kind of can reflect on it all. The show is very much about the grieving process, and it's a very unique. It's funny, but it's also it's grim, but it's also really funny at times. Like how you process grief and how you basically have like Christina Applegate as this widowed mother, and Linda Cardellini, who becomes her friend, who's also sharing in grief herself for other reasons. And then, of course, is very much kind of they have a very unusual but very close relationship. And they become a comedy duo essentially throughout the show. It's a very interesting dynamic, given how they both have impacted each other's lives. And each season essentially plays on this. For the end of each season is kind of a cliffhanger that basically is like a big event per season that is triggered by the last. So it's a very flowing narrative. And this season closes the loop on the friendship of these two ladies, and again, who are so close, and are essentially our best friends, like BFFs, despite having huge roles in each other's tragedies, essentially. And essentially, at a certain point, they kind of become death magnets. Like a lot of misfortune kind of draws upon them. Again, kind of in that Breaking Bad season 1 and Good Girls kind of vibe, like one mess into another. Like, oh God, what now? In places, very funny. I mean, I'll admit this season 3, because it's kind of the ending and because of a big plot element this season, it's a little more somber. There is comedy, but not as funny as the first 2 seasons, I will say. But again, there's a good reason for that. And I got to admit, since this season, I believe, is the first season in which Christina Applegate, this is her after her MS diagnosis. I think she gets injured at the top of the season. I think they did that to kind of mask the MS a little bit. I think it was kind of messing with her a little bit. So that was kind of clever on their part. At least I think, assuming that's even remotely the case. But yeah, man, I tell you, I still honestly, you have to watch, at the very least, you have to watch the first season of this show because of Ed Asner. Ed Asner's in the first season of the show, and he's used rather well.
Right.
Briefly, but rather well. But yeah, again, Top Mark's another kind of win for Netflix in terms of their original content, and at least for some of the selective ones that have really just dazzled. And I think Dead to Me is one of those examples. So this is good.
Okay, cool. All right, let's see. So I have Chef versus Snack. This is a really solid comfort show. I dig the premise, Dragon. Basically, the whole idea is that it's a very simple kind of Hell's Kitchen style competition show where each round, the people have to essentially deconstruct a snack. So episode 1, it's flaming hot Cheetos. Episode 2, Pringles, etc. And it kind of goes in 2 legs. The first round, they have to basically reconstruct the snack, from scratch. And then the second round, they have to take a component of the snack and make an original snack out of it.
Where this show falls apart, though, for me, is the game structure of it. Because what happens is that every episode, it's 3 people who get quote unquote randomly selected. And it's this really dumb process where all their names are like on bags of chips in a vending machine, and the vending machine quote unquote randomly drops them. And it's so obviously rigged, because every time you have someone saying like, oh man, I'm here to win, but I really don't want to be put in the Flaming Hot Cheetos challenge. And then, of course, inevitably, they get put in the Flaming Hot Cheetos challenge. So, my point is that every episode, you're only seeing 3 people actually competing. The rest of the cast is just on the sidelines. You're not learning anything about them. You like episode 1, you only meet 3 of the cast members. Like, you only learn 3 of the people's names. And, like, that's a fundamental flaw with your reality show, just from a game structure point of view. Like, for me, it should clearly be that in a show like this, it should clearly be that everybody competes in every round, and the person who does the worst goes home. And instead, they have this weird, convoluted, like, okay, we're gonna have, each episode 3 people are gonna compete, and one person out of those 3 is gonna earn a spot in the finals. And I'm sorry, I know I'm going off on this, but like, having run So You Want to Be an Imagineer of the Game for as long as I have, like, game theory is a thing for me. And this show is just, like, I really do love the comfort food vibes of this show. The game theory is just a mess. It just is. And I'm already talking too long about this show. But yeah, it was frustrating to watch because I dug the actual challenges, but I could not get into the competition for the life of me.
Okay.
And that's probably about as much as anyone on the internet has ever talked about Chef versus Snack.
Possibly. All right, let me tell you about Spectre. No, I'm not talking about the James Bond movie. I'm talking about Phil Spector.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
Certainly a much different Spectre.
Yes, so this is a documentary, like a brief, 4-episode little docuseries that was on Showtime. And it's the only other time I've seen like Phil Spector really kind of adapted or kind of like that story told was the Al Pacino movie HBO did back in the day, which it was mixed results. I mean, Al Pacino was good, but it was like story it didn't quite click. Ended really funny, but and really kind of because I didn't show a trial or anything. It was like the build up to the trial was really weird. Anyway, this covers pretty much everything you need to know in 4 episodes. It covers the wide gambit. I mean, if you want to know about Phil Spector, I'd recommend this before the Pacino film. This was good. Again, it's not exactly the most happy-go-lucky story, obviously. It's a question if this girl committed suicide or did the ill-tempered producer shoot her when he's known to act out and have temper tantrums. And Phil Spector, very quirky guy. He's very wig happy. He's he's again temperamental. And yeah, I mean, he's an egomaniac with delusions, and that's the thing. I mean, between Pacino and this, I think it's kind of we're oddly this is kind of like the next. At the time, this was like the next O.J. Simpson thing. It was like the O.J. Simpson trial equivalent in terms of what's the next big kind of like noteworthy trial that we had. And it feels like kind of at the same time, like now, especially with Netflix, like we're very much at risk of like devoting too much to stories like serial killers and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
That's
an issue for sure.
Now, this is not necessarily the same thing, but I think they should play by the rules of OJ, for example. Or OJ, you have two takes on that story, and that's all you need. You have OJ Made in America, brilliant documentary film, well, kind of long film with the whole the 5 parts, so it's kind of like 5 movies.
I still don't know how that movie, I'm like, I think it's cool that it won Best Documentary, but I don't know how.
Because it was that amazing, Tiki. Seriously, man, I love the heck out of that thing. Anyway, the other one being the essentially the biopic in the TV format with with OJ, the People versus OJ Simpson, with Travolta and everything. Those are the only times you ever really need to tackle those stories. So in that respect, I think we kind of got it with Spectre here. I think we kind of do it here. We kind of go home. We don't really we don't risk sensationalizing things.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I'd recommend this. You want to know about the Phil Spector case, but thankfully you don't have like an overwhelming amount of like Phil Spector stuff. But again, I'd recommend this over Pacino.
Okay, cool. All right, finally, let's get into some catch up. All right, so you watched a pretty enticing sounding documentary. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah. So I was kicking myself last month because constantly on movie memoirs, there's like the last minute additions, and you gotta like resend the list and everything.
Yeah. Fun fact, folks. There's always at least like 2 or 3 lists before we get to the master list. Just a little inside baseball for you.
So I was kicking myself, and then I realized I forgot to add the documentary to like the movies that came out in October. I mean, this thing's in a unique space already. So basically, Mike Mignola, Drawing Monsters, is a documentary I highly recommend to you. Unfortunately, folks, I have no idea how you're going to be able to watch it, at least for the moment. It'll be a while before you're able to watch it, I'm sure. Basically, this was a crowd-funded thing. I contributed to an Indiegogo fund to make a documentary on Mike Mignola, and I was sent this copy of it. And it's really good. I've met Mike Mignola before, and of course, I love Hellboy, and I can't say like I'm a huge fan. Like I don't know the comments at the back of by the back of my right hand of doom or anything, but I like Mike Mignola. Of course, he's had contributions to Batman the Animated Series, which unfortunately are a little absent from the documentary for my liking, or at the very least, very, very skim. I don't think they're covered at all in this documentary because there's a lot of Mike Mignola's done, so they have to focus on the key stuff. So, regardless, this documentary, it was very good. Details his life and his style. Yeah, because Mike Mignola essentially is going to be. I don't know if this is necessarily the best comparison. It's the only one I feel is kind of apt for him. At least this documentary kind of gives you the vibe of. He's kind of like a next generation Jack Kirby meets Scott Snyder. So it's like, what if you took kind of like Scott Snyder loves architecture and loves history and he loves doing the research, as you know from the Court of Owls and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you took that, because Mike Mignola loves the Victorian era, which is kind of Snyder-esque, and you kind of mix that with kind of a guy who draws like Jack Kirby, but kind of in a really kind of the guy leans into monsters like Kirby famously made monsters in the first place. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of Mignola's whole bag. So this guy's very interesting. He's very much kind of like he writes and draws in a very, again, kind of very classy Victorian way. That's very
really would love him to do another animated movie. It doesn't even have to be through Disney. Just like I just feel like his style just works really well in an animated format.
And they cover that they cover the whole Atlantis thing in the documentary rather well. The whole thing of like they cover that people. They talk to a lot of really great people in this documentary. A lot of people you probably recognize, like for example, Neil Gaiman's in it, Adam Savage, Doug Jones, Del Toro.
Of course, yeah.
Got a lot of people. It's Mike Richards. They got a whole bunch. Anyway, so people are talking about how they were very much looking forward to Atlantis, where they were under the impression Atlantis was going to be far. Because here's the thing: Mike Mignola did work on Atlantis, but at the end of the day, they could only use like a third to a fourth of his work, and the movie was originally entirely in the Mike Mignola art style.
Really?
Yeah. So
I mean, it still feels very much like his art style, honestly.
So that's the thing. Ultimately, the whole movie does still.
Interesting.
So and that's what they cover.
Kind of makes you wonder, like, just how. Oh man, like, because the movie itself, like, it's still very stylized. Like, goddamn, that would have been a masterpiece if it would have been like full Magnolia.
Well,
or Magnolia. Yeah. I'm sorry.
But that's the thing, though. It's really interesting. Where, as you said, and I agree with you full hearted. Like Atlantis feels very Mignola in all the right ways.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a question of in the documentary. These are like guys who are like live and breathe Mignola, and it feels like to them it was like this is before he had the Hellboy animated movies and everything, and like the Amazing School-on Head pilot.
Right.
So it felt like these are guys who want to see like him doing. He did all conceptual art and everything for Atlantis, which very much looked like this is what we're having Mignola on an animated movie.
That probably, I'm guessing, basically looked like if Magnolia had done like an Atlantis comic, just straight up, I imagine.
Essentially, so the promise was, we have Mignola working on a Disney movie, ergo, the animation finished product will look full on like a Mignola comic animated. So I think,
like, if only Disney was bold enough to do full movies in that kind of style, but they're not, and they never will be.
No, I think the truth is kind of in the middle.
Strange World opens with kind of like a cool sort of like 1950s animated sort of intro to kind of like introduce the characters, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, God damn it, this would have been such a better movie if it would have just stuck to this style, but of course it's not going to.
Yeah. And that said, Tiki, and I agree with you there. The same token, though, I think the truth is kind of like a thing that lies in the middle here, in which I think those guys may have had their expectations of. I think it's more a question of how animating Mignola's style is a difficult task because he has a very
Sure.
unique style, and I think ultimately what we ended up with the Lance again, we have very Mignola sections, and overall, the air of Mignola is felt.
I'm just
So
saying, like, the character designs,
Yeah.
especially, and then also, like, the Atlantean backgrounds. I don't know. There's
Yeah.
a lot in there.
So that's what I'm saying. Ultimately, I think Mignola is well represented. But the point is they kind of talk about this sort of thing in the documentary. And we talk about his father, who's very much the
I
basis
mean,
for.
Rourke especially just looks straight out of the Magnolia comic with his, with his proportions.
Uh-huh. So that's the thing. I mean, also we get into like his father, who was the basis for Hellboy as a character, and there's a lot of interesting kind of stuff there. And the idea, like Hellboy essentially is the Batman of Dark Horse. He essentially is Mignola's like the golden goose. It's like, what if we had the living creator of a Batman? Because I believe Hellboy, and they kind of cover like an anniversary of Hellboy, which I think is 25 years by the time they at least were working on the documentary. Again, the release was probably delayed by a year or so, but maybe like 6 months at the very least. But yeah, so it's also one more fascinating thing to talk about this. They cover the rift that he had with Guillermo del Toro because he and del Toro had kind of yeah, and it's not like an embittered thing. It's just they very much Mike Mignola's kind of they cover this. Mike Mignola's kind of a temperamental artist. It's like he's a guy. Sure. I did not have this experience with him, but I may have blindly in my youth. He was like one of the first cons I went to. I had Mike Mignola there, and it was like I probably like maybe the first or second. I think the second one. Anyway, Mignola. It's like I may have brought up like, oh man, I love the Hellboy movies, and you get a sense like he would much prefer like, oh, you love the Hellboy comics. So I think that's more just the guy like where the idea is he likes it a little bit more like what the comics did. And essentially, Hellboy 2 was kind of the rift between them, where he kind of respects that Hellboy 2 is in the spirit of what he did, but it's very much now Guillermo del Toro has kind of taken ownership of Hellboy, and he respects that, but it's very much not like in the first movie.
I mean, especially like with the whole situation with the fans and like everyone wants it. Yeah, I mean, he very much. I could see that.
So it's kind of the relationship we have now.
It's kind of like nobody's fault, but that is a complex situation.
And it's not like they're not angry at each other. That's the
right.
Just they kind of had like a rift in their friendship. Where the first movie,
human nature, man. Sometimes life just sucks like that, and it's nobody's fault.
Yeah, that first movie is much more in line with the comics, and in that sense, though, like they're very buddy. Like, hey, let's bring your comic to life.
Yeah, except that first movie has that nanny character that you really don't need.
Nanny? Oh, right. Sorry. When you say Nan, I know you're talking about. You're talking about John. Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
So when you say nanny, I keep thinking, are you talking about the German lady?
They literally call him a nanny, Dragon. I don't know what you want from me.
No, I know he's a nanny. It's like one joke in the book. I don't think they call him it. Anyway.
Oh, I'm just saying that's effectively his role.
No, you're right. No, you're right. I agree. You threw me off for a second, but you're right.
I'm sorry.
He is a nanny. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway. But I'm saying the movie it's a really solid documentary, man. I wish I could point you directly to it, but it'd probably be a while before it's like streaming anywhere. So
yeah, it sounds like the type of thing that will eventually pop up on Prime or something.
Yeah, eventually, sure. That's the thing. But so it's kind of a wait. But
like the Greg Nicotero things that he's done, for example.
Yeah, so you're kind of in my shoes with the Pinocchio thing. Only unfortunately, I can't say it's gonna be a 9-day wait.
Right.
Okay.
All right, next up we have Terrifier 2. So Art the Clown lives up to the hype. I don't think this movie does, though, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think Art the Clown, very much iconic performance, very, very creepy. And this movie is, I haven't seen the original Terrifier, but I've seen clips of it. And by all intents and purposes, this looks a lot more cinematic than the original Terrifier does. However, this movie's 2.5 hours long, and it does not need to be 2.5 hours long. And you feel that 2.5 hours. And I do not know why they went 2.5 hours with it. And that's definitely the biggest problem. I will admit, at first, I was intrigued by the runtime. I was like, oh man, this is like a slasher movie epic. But no, it's really not. It's just kind of like a prototypical, like, oh, it's Halloween night and Art the Clown killed on Halloween, so look out for Art the Clown. And of course, Art the Clown shows up. So, I mean, really killer performance. Like, it's very, as Mr. Wynn would say, it's very creepy in some
Very
spots.
creepy.
Very gory, but overall, when I think about it, like, the first time I saw it, I think I was a little bit, like, swept up in just how gory it was. Like, oh, man, this is fucked up. But, yeah, I don't think it's going to hold up too well on a rewatch. I don't know. Like, it's in the lower rung of original horror this year. Like, I don't think it's, like when I think of bad horror movies from this year, I think of stuff like, like Scream and stuff like that. But it's better than that. But I certainly don't think it's as good as like some of the, like we've gotten some horror master classes this year, and this is not up there with some of that. So, it's a decent enough movie, but I don't know. I wasn't really blown away by it by any means.
Okay. Hey, Tiki.
Yes.
Are you ready for a mystery movie? Ooh.
I am.
Okay, you're going to love this.
Oh, God. With these mystery movies, sometimes I'm excited and other times I'm nervous because it might just be an opportunity for you to shit all over one of my favorites.
Well, only one way to find out, my friend.
Okay, what is it?
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Oh, shit. Oh, God.
So I saw
have
it finally.
Conflicted feelings with this movie.
So I thought I thought it was okay, but it was a little overhyped.
Thank you. Oh my God.
I gotta be honest.
Treating this like it's the best, most amazing thing ever, and it's not. It's good. It's super creative. It's really well edited. It's got good performances, but man, it's bloated.
I'll tell you this. You're absolutely right. It's absolutely bloated. But I'll tell you this, man. You gotta remember, I have a very complicated relationship with A24.
Yeah, A24 is not your type of studio.
So that's the thing.
It's very much a me thing.
If A24 was ever gonna sell me on a non-documentary film that they'd done, it would have been this. And I tell you, man, I felt kind of burned again to an extent. I'm not saying it was like a total loss. I'm saying compared to all the other A24 movies, probably still. I mean, I guess it's the best I've
well, I mean, to be fair, A24 kind of specializes in horror, which is decidedly not.
Well, I'm saying the non-horror movies that I've watched from A24. I mean, like between like The Lighthouse and the there's The Lighthouse.
Your favorite A24 horror must be Tusk, right?
Well, that was
A24.
So yes. Kevin Smith didn't just he used the A24 to do that.
Yeah, that was A24. Yeah.
Okay, well, fine. It's the best A24 film for me then.
Anyway. Funny because the people who are actually into A24 think that's one of the worst ones.
Well, that figures. Anyway, so I mean, look, I think the filmmaking was indeed impressive on this. The problem for me,
I think the editing is the most impressive feat here.
Well, yes, but last I checked, editing is part of the filmmaking. But yes,
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, for me though, it's that the problem for me is that the story didn't quite click until Act 3. And that was my problem. In that because this movie, it feels like it went too ambitious in the multiverse, and like we kind of shifted just too much, and for like I didn't have a direct through line. Which it's like, for example, you look at Multiverse of Madness, for example, Doctor Strange. That getting from point A to point B, you go through a number.
I feel like Doctor Strange doesn't have enough multiverse stuff, and this has too much.
So the thing is kind of like, I know it's weird, right? It's like kind of like if they can meet in the middle somehow, where
it's like I think a lot of the multiverse stuff in this movie is creative, but then I don't know. I think it gets to the point where it's like when it's stuff like, okay, they're literal rocks with beady eyes. I'm like, all right, this is just okay.
Not beady eyes, googly eyes.
Googly eyes, yeah. I do genuinely like the Ratatouille stuff in this movie. I'm not sure how you felt about that now that you've actually seen it.
Yeah, I remember I was very much in disbelief when you tried describing this whole Raccoonie thing.
Raccoonie, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a chuckle at first. It's like, yeah, but then we're like, okay, we're chasing down the raccoon, or really, that's a little much.
My whole thing is that I felt like, again, tonally, kids, I felt it was really weird how it's like they were trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too with like, all this crazy imagery, and yet you're going like super sentimental and sappy with a lot of it.
I'll tell you what it was for me, T. The biggest problem I have with this movie that really takes me out of it, where I'm liking the editing and like essentially the representation of the multiverse, but in terms, my issue is sorry. My issue is that it's to a point where it's hard to tell, the root problem of what the root problem of the main universe is. It's because where we keep shifting around things. Like every time we do like that whole, she does something weird and then she shifts universes, she learns a new skill or something, and she just keeps shifting between universes. And then when we check back in on the stakes of like the main reality we started on, I can't follow what's going on, and
I
that's a
hear you.
problem.
I hear you.
Because I need to understand what the direct parallel. What are we learning in all these shifting universes that relates to the main one? Which I think I
Mean
get.
Dragon, it felt very video gamey. It felt like she was going on a lot of different side quests just to get these abilities to fight the main boss. You know what I mean?
I mean, if I read it correctly, as you can tell me, perhaps if I am, it's the vibe I get is that okay, it's about essentially a mother having issues with her daughter, and of course her
Yeah,
husband
that's
too.
the thing, is that people like to think that this movie is like super duper deep, but at the end of the day, I actually think it's kind of like, I don't know, like almost like basic as far as like, yeah, it's literally like it's turning red. It's like the generational divide between a mother and a daughter.
Like the problem, that's the thing, Tiki. It just feels like there's a really simple story we can tell, and then we can dress up with a bunch of multiverse stuff. But
Exactly.
But the problem is when we dress it up too much, like we are, we're losing the root of like the sweet and simple story of like, okay, here's the problem. Evelyn's daughter, okay, making her the bad guy, that is an interesting idea that does relate to, okay, so she's now perceiving her as her mother as the antagonist essentially because of the whole, not being open to how she wants to live her life. Okay. Problem, I don't need her as the bad guy through the entirety of the film. It's like I don't know what there's no conflict at that point where it's like I kind of need you, but I don't like you. It's like, well, where's the strife? Where's the whole like they need a catharsis? And it's just like, well, they're hanging out and she's trying to reach her daughter. You see what I'm saying? Is like we dragged it out far too long. But by the same token,
frankly, I think the daughter was just, I don't know, kind of a brat.
and that's the problem because we overextended the story. It's like I've lost. I should be kind of like, oh no, this I feel bad for. But then it's like, well, I'm losing all sympathy now because now
where the movie really lost me?
Where the movie lose you?
The everything bagel.
Here's the thing, I don't
know why, but I just thought the everything bagel, just as a plot device, was the most pretentious. Like, oh, you get it? It's literally everything, man. It's so deep, bro. Like, it really fucking rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know why. I can't explain it.
Can you? I think I'm missing. Can you remind me? Is there a third one that says all at once or something? Is there?
Yes, but it happens way late into the movie, and I keep waiting for it. And then at a certain point, I'm just kind of like, is it just going to be the end title? Like that's another thing that I don't really like. I kind of dug the framing device at first, but I feel like the actual titles are like really awkwardly spaced apart from each other. So I know that sounds like a nitpick, but still, it's, I'm glad I wasn't the only one who was like, wait, is the all at once part even coming? Because yeah, it takes forever to actually get to that point.
So again, ultimately for me with this movie, it just feels like there's a really good direct story here at its root, but it gets completely lost in the style.
Yeah.
Now, what's said to again, in the one of the things with the style that does actually work, though, again, honestly, with the performance, it's more a performance thing, but it does lead to probably the best moment in the movie. Ke Huy Quan, that guy.
He is easily the best part of the movie, easily.
Our cast is, let's just say our cast is great. We have Ke Huy Quan, obviously,
James
Michelle
Wan.
Yeoh. James Hong was, when I saw him pop up,
sorry.
when I saw James Hong pop up, like, hey, it's James Hong. All right. I'll tell you what, this one bothered me. This is not a bad thing. It's like kind of needling away the back of your head sort of thing. It's like, okay, so I remember I saw the trailer for this and saw this woman who's like, okay, that can't possibly be Jamie Lee Curtis. And
like, it's very much Jamie Lee Curtis.
But it's like almost it's like unrecognizable enough.
It's a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Doesn't
almost
it feel weird?
Too much Jamie Lee Curtis.
But does it feel like when you look at her, does it feel like she's like, this is gonna be a weird way of putting this? She's unrecognizable enough. Just enough. You know, just like where it's like it makes you think, is that Jamie Lee Curtis? She looks like, but that can't. I don't know. She looks different, but yeah, it's her. Anyway, yeah, but ultimately, to me, Tiki is just the same pattern. Of course, the best moment in the movie, the whole laundry and taxes bit, where we have like the one multiverse I cared about, the one I needed, the one that I think if we just streamed, not to the level of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but if we strung it down to at
Because
least
that is not a multiverse, nor is it much madness.
True, yes, but I'm saying this is more mad. Yes, truly, this is more madness than the Doctor Strange element.
Uh-huh,
It's
uh-huh.
if only we could have blended the two, in which we have like a main universe, like a few, let's say 3 key universes, and then a few gags. Like, okay, then we go a little madness at you, getting from point A to point B. But let's just say the main universe that counted to me in all of this was the universe in which she did not make the big decision to leave, be on bad terms with her father and go with Quan and all that. And then then he comes back. She's a successful movie star.
Oh yeah,
and
totally, yeah.
And he says, "I would have loved to do laundry and taxes with you." That's brilliant. That's great. So that's the heart of the movie, but it's getting lost. I don't have that until like the last 30 minutes of the movie, which is like, well, what did I spend all this time doing? Till I get to this part.
I don't know, the butt plug thing, like it was shocking in theaters, but the more I think about it, just kind of like, okay, that's just kind of like throwing in a meme just for the sake of being weird.
Honestly, the weird runner got a little, the whole thing. She's got to do some weird so she can jump.
Yeah, I hear you, Dragon. Thank you. I gotta tell you, I feel like I have been almost like villainized for. And when I first saw the movie,
you were glowing about this thing when it came out.
I was pretty high on it, but it's one of those movies where it really does not hold up when I think about it. You know what I mean? Like the more I think about it, the more holes I can poke into it.
I mean, again, this is just mainly me, I think. Or for me, A24, at least the movies that I've seen, they're not the direct horror movies. So there's their other stuff. Always to me feels like, I think it's ultimately style over substance, or
I mean,
the very
fair, style over substance in some ways is kind of like an A24 trademark.
At the very least, it's like style in the way of substance. That's kind of what this movie feels
I feel like A24, like at the best of times, they are style, meeting substance, if that makes sense.
Or it may be style in the way of substance.
Right, but I'm saying like in the best, like I feel like The Lighthouse is style meeting substance, for example. Okay. But
all right.
And that would be like a best case scenario example of like, you know how I feel about The Lighthouse, but
right.
Anyways.
Well, anyway, point being, there's good substance in this, but again, it's kind of thrown a lot at you, and I think it gets lost in that. So
I hear you.
All right, that's where I'm at on that.
Okay, so I finally saw VHS, and I'm actually kind of surprised it took me this long because this is like the found footage anthology series, and there's a lot of VHS movies, Dragon, and I gotta tell you, based on this first one, I've heard that the first one is not the best in the series, but this was not what I was hoping for. I really did not think this came together all that well, honestly. My big problem with it is that it had a framing device that you just did not need. This could have just very easily just been, like individual short stories that are all in the found footage format, and I feel like the movie would have been a lot better off for it. But instead, these tapes are all meant to be tapes that this group of home invaders find in this dead man's house, and it's like this really convoluted setup where they're breaking into this house and they find the tapes and they have to have an excuse for why they're watching the tapes. And that just bogs down the whole movie for me. Like, honestly, like it honestly takes a solid 10-15 minutes just to get to the tapes. And I will say that the sequence where they are breaking into the home, like it kind of commits that sin where it's like, good luck watching this in anything other than like, like pitch black lighting, or else you are going to get a glare because it's one of those like, darkly lit movies where it's dark to the point of just not being able to see anything. And then the shorts themselves, some of them are creative, some of them are just okay. I didn't really get any sort of wow moment from any of them. I think what I'm going to do in the future with this series is just kind of like check to see what the best one is, because there's like 4 or 5 of them as far as I'm concerned. It's a pretty broad series. But yeah, the first one honestly felt a little amateurish to me. I really, like, especially with that framing device that I really just didn't think was necessary. This wasn't the worst movie that I saw this month, but it was probably the most disappointing. And Dragon, as you kind of saw, like, you know, I kind of was like looking for stuff to catch up on, and I initially had both this and VHS2 on my list, but then after I watched this, I was like, let
Let's
me watch
shift
something
gears.
else instead. So that's kind of why it changed.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Okay, so let me tell you about one. This is one I was very much looking forward to. I've been tracking this thing down, and I thought I'd never.
Yes.
Okay, so Jerry and Marge go large.
This basically looks like the return of Cranston to his Malcolm in the Middle roots. Am I correct in that?
Well, I think it's, I don't
Not
know.
really?
Well, it's not as broad as Malcolm in the Middle.
Okay.
But I mean,
okay.
I don't know if Malcolm was the right comparison. But let me tell you this. So this thing always confounded me because it was on Paramount Plus, but somehow don't ask me. I don't know what Paramount Plus is doing. I don't really care. All I know is I was able to watch it. They put it on Showtime. So.
Oh, okay. Whatever. That's
however
weird.
However that times out, I have no idea. Streaming services are in chaos. But yeah, I was eager to see this. This is the Cranston movie I've been eager to see. And I tell you, man, it's very pleasant, man. This is a movie. This is a movie to show your parents, man. This is a good movie.
It's definitely one of those things where it kind of falls into the same sort of territory of you know, something like that show we were talking about. That's the comfort food.
Blockbuster?
Yeah, Blockbuster. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
where,
it's very.
You know, it's one of those things where I'm almost kind of like probably saving it for like when I just need like I just need something where it's just nice entertainment that I don't.
I mean, this is they use the movie comparison. This is kind of like it's not as like relentlessly, you know, kind of pleasantries as The Intern, but it's kind of in the same kind of zone as The Intern. I still tell you, man, if you're ever like on the brink, you've got to watch The Intern to bring you out of it.
That sounds it's
like the smelling salt of humanity.
Oh God.
Regardless, yeah, man, this thing it's based on essentially it's based on a true story. It's based on an article that was written about a real thing that happened. Essentially, old couple, in this case played by Bryan Cranston and Annette Bening, you know, Jerry and Marge. They, you know, it's an old couple. The husband was essentially he's a numbers man. He's really good at math. And he basically found a flaw in like the local lottery, not like one of the big ones, but like one of like the offshoot kind of lotteries, and like probably like jackpots would be probably like on the thousands and such, you know, like no millions or anything. But essentially, he found this flaw, which essentially pays out like a slot machine, and you know they basically do it as like a hobby of like, well, they're retired now. It's like, well, we're gonna do a retirement. Well, you know, he's very much been. I've never been a gambler or anything, so it's like, okay, well, you know, I kind of need. Why not? He gave it a shot after he kind of figured out this flaw, and then it paid out, and they kind of got the wife in on it. It became this cute little hobby for him. And they kind of build into an enterprise that keeps growing and growing. But Tiki, I'm gonna warn you right now. Not a tragedy of the lottery story. So refreshingly, it's not only stories like look at all the money they wanted, it destroyed their lives. You know those stories. You heard all those stories.
I mean, that's pretty much like the prototypical lottery story. Yeah.
This is not that. So refreshingly.
I'm just saying, like, can we just have one lottery story where it's just like a fun, like, all right, they win all the money and they have a lot of fun, a big fun time spending it.
Look no further, my friend. We found it. It's this movie.
Okay.
But yeah, it's
a pretty good sell.
Like the only conflict in this film is you have this young college puke, man. He's like the quote Patton Oswalt, college puke. You have this college
puke. That's great.
I love when Pat Oswalt does that college puke, but it's so hilarious. You young college puke. There's this young college puke from Harvard who kind of threatens him, and it's like you want to punch that kid, man. He's like, how dare you threaten these kindly old folks? So you know, that's kind of the closest thing you get to like it's not even like a bad thing of like the dangers of the lottery. It's more like the arrogance, literally, Tiki, the arrogance of you. Literally, that's what the dilemma is. But man, I tell you, it's real nice. It's a movie to show your parents.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, and fine, Willow.
But he was the Willow.
Yeah, this is damn good. It really is. Honestly, like as far as 80s high fantasy movies go, I would say like this is probably maybe not quite up there with Labyrinth, or maybe not quite up there with Dark Crystal, just because Dark Crystal is just like just visually a masterpiece. I mean, it still blows my mind just how ambitious that movie was with its puppet work. I will say, Drake, I think I probably like this movie a little bit better than Labyrinth. I would probably like sandwich it like right in between the two. Just because this movie has very, very endearing characters, and of course, very much anchored by Warwick Davis. Man, I don't know. Warwick Davis is just so infectious in this movie. You can just tell he's having the time of his life. He's such a scrappy little underdog of a hero. Dragon, he just wants to be a stage magician at the start of the movie. Not even a wizard or anything, just a stage magician. He just wants to wow the townspeople with his humble little stagecraft. It's such a humble little beginning. And then of course he gets brought into the big grand adventure, and it kind of goes from there. Very big. It's honestly a surprisingly big scale for the time, and of course another Lucasfilm property. Kind of a more underrated one. I would say, like, outside of Star Wars and Indiana Jones, this might be like one of the definitive Lucasfilm projects for me as far as just sheer quality goes. I really liked it a lot. It is very much anchored by Warwick Davis. I will say that much. He very much like kind of carries the film on his shoulders because a lot of it is just his sheer charisma and charm just oozing off of the screen. I mean, I tell you, man, he really just very much carries it. But it is a fun sci-fi movie, or not sci-fi, I'm sorry, fantasy movie. The world building is there, I don't know. It's very nice. It's just a very nice, cool little throwback 80s fantasy. I would recommend it. And of course, I will be checking out the Willow show. Although I don't know, Dragon, with the scheduling conflicts, Jacob and Laura kind of run into a little bit of scheduling conflict. We might have to make that like a season recap once it wraps up. I think that's what we're going to do with Jacob Gulliver and Laura, because they do want to come on and talk about it with us. But I digress. Anyways, okay, so that's it, Dragon. Best and worst.
Well, I gotta be honest. Unless I want to be really petulant and just throw one under the bus, I don't think I had any worse. To me, if I want to be really prickish, I would say Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I don't think that's fair.
I wouldn't mind.
Really want to put it under the bus?
Yeah.
Okay, worst was Everything Everywhere All at Once. A24. Best, honestly, I mean, look, I really like the Mignola thing, but honestly, Spirit is the one I was really raving about. So I think Spirit is probably it.
Okay, cool. All right, for me, I very much respect Bones and All. I do. It's a very ambitious movie, and I respect the fact that they had the balls to actually give those characters a lot of humanity, and like paid off. But for me, Banshees of Inisherin is practically perfect. I mean, the cinematography, the script, the performances, the character arcs, it's like, it just really fires on all cylinders. So I got to go with that for best. And then for worst, I mean, nothing that I saw was really terrible, but I think The Menu was probably among the most underwhelming, just because I really just... I don't know. I mean, VHS, it's between VHS and The Menu, Dragon. It really is. Because, I think I'm going to have to go with VHS just because I'm sure the series probably gets better with the entries. But for me, just for a series that is as high profile as it is, and for me being as big of a found footage fan as I am, it just did not do much for me, and that framing device just really dragged it down. It did not help the movie at all. So, all right. And then, of course, next month we have Avatar. Dragon, are you're seeing Avatar, right?
Well, Tiki, first off, you want to get rid of the thing.
Oh, yes.
Probably not, no.
You're not?
Yeah, probably not.
Oh, man. You're missing out. You're not seeing it on the big screen?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I sure am. Yeah, next month is going to be interesting. There's not really a ton coming out. The only things I really know about are Avatar and then Babylon, which is the La La Land follow up from Damien Chazelle. It's not his follow up because he did that weird Neil Armstrong movie, but this very much feels like it's in the same vein as La La Land. So we'll see how that goes. You know, it's got obviously some big shoes to fill to live up to La La Land, for me at least, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, and with that, we are done. Well, folks, we've waxed on long enough. It's time to put the pen down. Until next time, when we return for another fitting chapter in our movie memoirs. Let's get out of here, guy from Queen.